superior to the dollar. If they had already been using it, they stand to lose investment and lose trade opportunities. So you'd have to convince the government and the people that this is somehow a better option to get away from the dollar. But I can't think of a case where that would be true.
The US dollar is the most frequently used currency for global trade. It's used to price and buy oil. Central banks hold significant amounts of US dollars as part of foreign exchange reserves, which can be used to pay down international debt or settle overseas trade payments.
According to the Federal Reserve, the dollar is involved in over 50% of transactions worldwide. So the dollar still has a very strong role, a dominant role in the global financial system. I think that some countries resent this prominent position of the dollar in terms of currency and financial markets. And there may be, when we see countries trying to move away from that or move to other currencies or gold instead of the dollar, they're expressing their concern about being overly reliant on the United States. I think that explains the interest, for example, among the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, in trying to find an alternative currency to the dollar. Brazil hosted the BRICS countries last year, and that prompted a post by President Trump saying that if countries are seeking to displace the dollar, that could be grounds for higher tariffs. He definitely appreciates the position of the U.S. as being the issuer of the world's dominant global reserve currency, and he saw it as a threat.
So would it be fair to say then that the dollar is at the heart of the world's largest informal monetary union?
That's an interesting way to put it because it's sort of the best way. It's voluntary. The U.S. doesn't force countries, and notwithstanding the statement I just made that President Trump was ready to frown upon a country that deliberately sought to displace the dollar, but mostly it's voluntary. We've always said that's up to the country, and they have to decide if it's right for them. But we're not making special dispensation to accommodate them.
Ecuador and El Salvador are independent countries where the US dollar is the official currency. Several others, including Cambodia, Liberia and Zimbabwe, accept US dollars alongside their own currencies.
We always talk about the global economy. It's amazing we don't have a common currency that would work across borders, so we would never have to worry about exchange rates and these disruptions and these distortions and unfair trade practices of currency manipulation and having one central bank raise rates against the other. I think the world would be better if we had a level international monetary playing field.
So back to our main question. What's the future for monetary unions? Bulgaria's recent entry has grown the largest one, the Eurozone. Over in West Africa, 2027 is the newest launch deadline for its common currency. As our expert witness in the region said, we'll wait and see what will happen. Monetary unions can offer a range of economic benefits from being part of a large unified group. The major trade-off is the loss of an independent monetary policy, so a country's ability to respond to national economic shocks is limited. So the future rests on the economic health of potential members and whether the gains they make are worth more than what they give up. Thank you for joining us on The Inquiry from the BBC World Service. Don't forget to discover more of our podcast episodes wherever you get yours. Find them in the Inquiry feed, tap subscribe to stay updated. This episode of The Inquiry was written and presented by me, Charmaine Cozier. The producers were Daniel Rosney and Jill Collins, researcher Evie Yubsley, editor Tom Bigwood, and technical producer Toby James.
That was The Inquiry from the BBC.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and we're live in our CBC studio, where outside it is still dark and rainy out there. Wet, anyway. It's not raining as hard as it was about an hour ago after a day of extremely active weather. We're going to get into our news headlines in a moment to hear all about it. Hopefully you stayed safe yesterday. Let's say good morning to our team. You are on the morning show, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. We're on air till 8:37 AM, and Corey Funk is our show director. Hi, Corey. Corey's also covering the commute. There's Mr. Abby Adiyemi behind the controls. Abby will be covering the forecast today on the air. And there's Mr. Darren Marash, who's the producer of our YouTube stream. So that's our early crew, in addition to Heather Wells, who's in our news center to tell us more about yesterday. Heather.
Good morning. Yes. What an active day is right. 3 tornadoes touched down in southern Manitoba yesterday afternoon, 2 near Carman and 1 near Manitou. Now, Environment Canada this morning tells me a 4th twister was reported southeast of Dauphin, but the evidence in that tornado is insufficient to confirm. No damage reported from any of the tornadoes yesterday. We're going to hear from one man who was driving home from work between Darlingford and Winkler on Highway 3 when he saw those clouds start to rotate. So we'll hear that coming up. As well, Pride Winnipeg's decision to ban military personnel in uniform from this year's parade is disappointing to an advocate for 2S LGBTQ plus veterans. We're going to hear from Todd Ross, who says this policy is exclusionary. That's coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, we should be on the other side of the rain in Winnipeg with showers ending this morning and a cloudy day ahead. But then, I should say just for the morning, then we also have another system moving through that's going to bring us some more possible thunderstorms this afternoon. So we'll watch that. Strong winds, a high of 22 in Winnipeg, and then tonight still wet. Brandon, still a chance of showers or storms with you today, a high of 21. And up in Thompson, cloudy, just a 30% chance of further rain and a high of 15. Well, we are going to get you around the province to have a look at what that storm was like. We have video to share on our YouTube stream a little bit later as we touch base with someone who saw a twister forming outside their window with their kids, and we're trying to stay calm in Carman, Manitoba. Again, no information about any injuries. Stay tuned.
On cue, Joe Keithley has spent his whole life fighting the big fight. First as the leader of the legendary punk band DOA, and then as a city councillor in Burnaby, British Columbia, where he grew up. Joe Keithley will be here to tell you about a life of standing by your conviction. Q with Tom Power, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. The multi-billion-dollar trading relationship between Canada and the United States is hitting another rough patch. Just as Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc wrapped up a trip to Washington, the Trump administration stunned Ottawa by proposing a 10% tariff on Canadian goods. The U.S. claims the new levy is for not effectively banning the import of products made with forced labor. Janice McGregor has been following this for us and joins us from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, is this a surprise?
John, the Trump administration needed to find a new guise, a new legal means for imposing a blanket global tariff on all its trading partners. The need's been urgent since the Supreme Court struck down its previous tariffs earlier this year. This forced labor probe was so broad, so vague, that blanket determination could be a foregone conclusion. Now, if he knew this was coming, Canada's lead minister, Dominic LeBlanc, didn't let on for reporters yesterday, but he did sound resigned to this new reality.
It's not a surprise that the United States initiated these investigations. It won't surprise you that we share the concern of the Americans and other economic partners that we need to do everything we can together to face this challenge.
CUSMA-compliant goods are exempt. There's nearly 75 pages of exemptions, in fact, providing relief to American consumers for already inflated food products like beef, coffee, things like pharmaceuticals also. And these latest tariffs don't stack on top of tariffs, already adding a lot of inflation for things like steel and aluminum.
So, Janice, how could this impact CUSMA negotiations?
The uncomfortable truth is Canadian authorities have been found falling short of keeping goods made with forced labor out. Past CBC News investigations have found cotton clothing, tomato products with questionable supply chains on store shelves at major Canadian retailers. Aluminum supply chains in China are also tainted with forced labor concerns, but Canada agreed to import more Chinese electric vehicles anyway. Canada has passed laws against forced labor, but the U.S. listed this lack of enforcement among its list of trade irritants earlier this year. CUSMA goods may be exempt for now, But this global action could be new leverage during the review negotiations to force Canada and Mexico to block more Chinese goods or face consequences.
Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
The war between the United States and Iran is intensifying once again after a series of overnight strikes. The U.S. military says it launched a new round of self-defense attacks on Iranian targets, while Iran fired off fresh strikes targeting American military bases. The CBC's Willie Lowry is following the latest developments from Jerusalem.
An Iranian drone attack damaged the passenger terminal of Kuwait International Airport. The country's army says a number of people were injured in what it is calling the, quote, criminal Iranian aggression. The latest escalation in a war that is supposed to be quiet, with both sides observing a ceasefire. In recent days, it has been anything but. U.S. Central Command says it launched self-defense strikes on a strategic island in the Strait of Hormuz after Iran launched ballistic missiles and drones at multiple Gulf allies. Central Command says the Iranian attacks failed to hit their targets and the ceasefire endures. Iran says it targeted the U.S.'s Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain in response to the U.S. strike on Qeshm Island. In a statement, the country's foreign ministry said, quote, Iran reserves the right to defend itself against any country allowing the U.S. to use its territory or airspace to launch attacks against Iran. The foreign ministry adding that responsibility for the strikes lie not with Iran, but the rulers of Bahrain and Kuwait. The foreign ministry alleging that both countries, which are home to U.S. bases, had been used to support U.S. efforts against Iran. The tit-for-tat attacks come as diplomatic efforts to end the war have seemingly stalled, with the U.S. and Iran unable to agree to a framework that would end the conflict and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Willie Lowry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Violent clashes erupting on the streets of Southampton, England overnight, sparked by a controversial courtroom video. Demonstrators fought with riot police, throwing bricks and bottles outside the police station. The force is facing national backlash following the murder of Henry Nowak. Newly released body cam footage shows the 18-year-old handcuffed by police as he lay dying from stab wounds, and he complained he couldn't breathe. At least 21 people are dead after a building fire in India's capital of New Delhi. Officials say the building was a bed and breakfast for patients and relatives visiting a nearby hospital. About 40 people were injured. It's still not known what sparked the fire. Veteran 60 Minutes correspondent Steve Pelly is out at CBS News. What appears to have been an internal squabble has now become very public, with Pelly calling out the network's new owners and executives for trying to stay in the good graces of President Trump. Apparently, everything came to a head after a tense staff meeting. The CBC's Chris Reyes joins us now from Washington. So, Chris, what can you tell us about what led up to Pelly's dismissal?
Well, John, that staff meeting with the program's new executive producer, Nick Bilton, earlier this week turned confrontational. And in that meeting, Pelly reportedly accused Bilton and his boss, controversial and also new CBS News president Barry Weiss, of murdering 60 Minutes after two other 60 Minutes correspondents were fired last week. In a scathing letter obtained by several news outlets, Bilton said Pelly hijacked his first meeting and showed no interest in the future of the show. Bilton called Pelly's behavior a performative display of hostility enacted in front of the staff. Bilton said he hoped to sit down with Pelly to find a path forward, but he accused Pelly of making it clear that he was not interested in that.
Chris, what have we heard from Scott Pelly?
Yeah, Pelly released a full-page statement to several news outlets. He addressed the issue directly. He wrote, "The new owner of our network is casting 60 Minutes aside, apparently to curry a moment of favor with the Trump administration." This controversy, John, goes back to last year when CBS's parent company merged with Skydance, owned by the son of Trump ally Larry Ellison. Pelly goes on to say that new management instructed him to inject falsehoods and bias into a politically sensitive story, and that he has been told to include assertions that are unverified, referring to the firing of his two colleagues Pelly said good people were silenced because they stood up for our audience. He said they stood up for fairness against forces of political bias. They stood up for professionalism against chaos. He said the waste was heartbreaking.
CBC's Chris Reyes in Washington. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
In Manitoba, hot and dry weather is fueling the wildfire risk across much of the province. 2 wildfires burning out of control about an hour's drive northeast of Winnipeg. Both started over the weekend near Lac du Bonnet. Local officials and residents are anxious about a potential repeat of 2025. Flames tore through more than 40 square kilometers in the region that year. 2 people were killed. There are big worries in Newfoundland and Labrador over a potential summer strike at Marine Atlantic. The Crown Corporation is the only ferry service between the province and the Maritimes, and even a partial shutdown could have a major economic fallout. Peter Cowan has the details.
I think it's really concerning.
Anne-Marie Boudreau is head of the St. John's Board of Trade. She says if workers at Marine Atlantic are able to strike, it would cause a huge disruption.
A lot of perishable food that comes to the island portion of Newfoundland and Labrador comes via Marine Atlantic. We get a lot of medical supplies that services the entire island that come via Marine Atlantic. So we're talking about a critical link.
Workers represented by Unifor started bargaining last year. In April, talks broke down despite the help of a federal mediator. Workers could be in a legal strike position by the end of the month. The Labor Relations Board ruled Marine Atlantic is an essential service, so workers can't walk off the job. But the union is now proposing that if a strike does happen, service could be cut to just 3 crossings a week, down from 4 crossings a day.
Marine Atlantic is an essential service for us.
Premier Tony Wakeham says he doesn't want to see any cuts during a busy summer season, with tourists coming in and more than $1 billion worth of seafood going out.
Yeah, any kind of a slowdown in Marine Atlantic is a problem for us.
Federal Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne was in Newfoundland, where he was asked about the ferry service.
This is going to require all our attention.
The union wouldn't comment, but in an update posted online, it says talks broke down before monetary issues could even be discussed. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. If your kids have questions about what they hear in the news, we have answers. Check out cbckidsnews.ca, cbckidsnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Well, just some light rain after the storm right now, but it's going to continue to be a rainy day over most of Manitoba. Thanks for joining us on Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3. Also 9:90 a.m. on the app and YouTube. And if you do follow me on Facebook, our show, that page, Marcy Marcusa, during the show acts as a show page, just asked you for some storm pics because I know all over this province a lot of people were able to safely get some photos of some incredible cloud cover. I'd also love to see some hail. If you were in an area that got that, see what that looks like. So send them our way. This hour on the show, Beyond the Storm, we're going to hear from the chief of Lake Manitoba First Nation who's calling for building upgrades at their local school after teachers began calling in sick because they were fearing for their safety. Their doors don't lock. We'll hear more about that. Also this hour, more on trade. As you've just been hearing on World Report, the minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade has returned from Washington. And the news is not great. So we will hear a little bit more about what this signals for the upcoming CUSMA negotiations, which are critical to Canada and, of course, to Manitoba as well. Let's go to Heather Wells first, though, for more on the storm and other stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, twisters last night, later in the afternoon. 3 tornadoes confirmed to have touched down in southern Manitoba, 2 near Carman, 1 near Manitou. And Environment Canada says a 4th twister was reported southeast of Dauphin, but the evidence there was not sufficient. Jorge Angeles noted the storm whipping up on his highway as he was driving on Highway 3 between Darlingford and Winkler. He says he saw the clouds start to rotate and he took a photo. We have that photo up on our website this morning. So we'll hear more from him and what he saw coming up. As well, a 17-year-old boy from Winnipeg died in a crash west of Kenora. Ontario Provincial Police were called to Highway 17 just before 2 yesterday afternoon. The vehicle the teen was driving and a semi-truck collided. We'll hear more coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Heather, I'm trying to, just regarding the storm, I'm trying to verify hail pictures. So one of them came through yesterday, but I haven't verified it yet. And it was almost like I've never seen hail like this before, which is why I'm trying to be clear that I don't know if this is a real image, but it did seem to come from an account that I've followed before on storms and seemed to be legit, but it almost looked like cauliflower.
It was lumpy, right?
Yeah, not smooth edges, which they say can form in more violent systems or when the wind's really strong. I'd not seen that before, actually, myself.
Yeah, I don't know if I have either, but Environment Canada meteorologist I spoke to this morning, Shannon Moody, says most of the tornadic activity with the touchdowns happened in fields, so there really wasn't a lot of damage, be it from hail or from the tornadoes.
Yeah. Well, if anybody has hail or wants to verify anything like that, that's something that I would love to see and understand. But certainly lots of incredible pictures of ominous skies yesterday, as you mentioned on our website, from your guest and more. Thank you.
Thank you.
So keep those pictures coming. We just sort of like to see the day that was, but to set up the day ahead, which will be less stormy but still rainy. Here's Abby.
Yes, I can tell you, Mercy, tracking social media yesterday and, of course, verified sources. 3 actually touched down in southern Manitoba. As Heather mentioned, no damages recorded. But for today, we will get to see more like clear conditions. We're still seeing early morning showers across the province this morning, and this is going to be lingering through the southern regions. If you look up north, we're beginning to see more like clear skies and sunshine into the Churchill region. Here in Winnipeg, we're beginning the day with more like this light rain from overnight, 17 degrees at this time. Expect a breezy day ahead as we climb towards a high of 22 later. You will notice humid conditions with the UV index really on the high side throughout the day. And still keep an eye out. We still have more showers and thunderstorms expected to develop this afternoon. This would clear as we get into the overnight period. But today it's more like on and off rain showers today, and it will be humid across the southern regions. We're tracking foggy conditions along the Brandon area also this morning. Most regions sitting between 15 and 18 degrees. Winnipeg, it is 17 degrees.
All right, Abby.
I'll get a call.
We're like a family. Abby, get the phone. Corey's busy. What do you know, Corey, so far about traffic?
There's one thing something might be coming, but the one thing you got to know right now is that you could expect actually just a short 10-minute closure of all of eastbound Abinogi-Meekina sometime potentially. The city says so it's Abinogi-Meekina from Market Boulevard to Pembina Highway for bridge construction today between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. So it may have happened already, may still happen. It's just a 10-minute little window they need to close all the eastbound lanes of Abinogi-Meekina between that area. So heads up, that might throw you off a little bit this morning. But otherwise, though, haven't heard of any major issues yet. But if you do see something, did Abby get something in your ear there?
He did, yeah. This was John calling our commuter line just to let people know it's very, very foggy. I think his word was horrifically foggy west of Brandon.
Okay.
So that's going to affect your drive. Thanks, John, for listening. Thanks for calling us.
And if you do have anything else that you're seeing out there, you can give us a call. And let me know if you see anything on Abinogi-Meekina there. I'd love to let people know. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, let's begin in Lake Manitoba First Nation. Leadership there is calling for immediate improvements to their school. It is 50 years old, and they say many of the doors are warped, broken, and unable to lock. That poses safety concerns for students and for staff that are in the building daily. The school recently received funding from Indigenous Services Canada for renovations, but the First Nation says the architect hired did not examine the internal doors and failed to address a significant safety risk. Cornell McLean is the chief of Lake Manitoba First Nation. He's been advocating for improvements to the school for years, and he spoke with Up to Speed guest host Chloe Friesen about it yesterday.
Can you describe these doors for us? What's wrong with them?
Well, they're in horrible condition. They're broken. They're 50 years old. The hardware can't be replaced because we can't find them, and the hinges are broken. The entries are broken. The doorknobs and some glasses are broken on some of the doors. They're warped as well.
When did you first learn about the problems with the doors? When was it made clear to you that this was a big issue?
Well, I had one of the teacher aides reach out to me about fixing the door, so I had the contractor look at the door, and I had one of the maintenance guys take a picture of it for me, and he sent me it, and then he said that's not the only door that's broken. There's numerous doors that are broken. So I had the contractor again go about the school and look at all the doors, and they were warped, and of course needed to be replaced.
And I've heard there was an issue brought up regarding locking doors and potential lockdown scenarios. How do those things kind of go hand in hand?
Well, of course, there's a big incident that happened in BC where some kids were killed by a shooter, and if that ever happened in Lake Manitoba, we'd certainly be under threat because we're not able to lock our doors. Even if we had a threat in the school and we couldn't lock the doors, and we had to call on the RCMP to come and keep our school safe.
I believe you're referencing the shooting at Tumbler Ridge.
That is the one, exactly. And, you always say never could happen in your area, but you never know where it could happen, right?
You've mentioned infrastructure problems at the school have just been, quote, bandaged. What do you mean by that?
Well, school is 50 years old. We have asbestos in our basements covered up. It's covered up in plastic. We recently modernized the school a little bit. We did our gymnasium floor that was covered with asbestos. We did the washrooms. We put handicap stalls, push bars, and handicap door opening for the washrooms. The community pitched in for that, and we just don't have the money to do it. I think it's our right to education as a part of our treaties that, they should be fixing the infrastructure of the school. And, the school has passed its timeline. It's 50 years old. Everything is breaking, and all they're doing is bandaging in a situation over and over again.
There was funding from Indigenous Services Canada for renovations. Why weren't the doors addressed, to your knowledge?
Well, and here's the thing, with a build design, the architect has to go in there and survey everything along with the tender build people, people that are applying for the tender, and which was overlooked by them. I don't understand how that could have happened. And, the doors being 50 years old aren't fire rated. And I had one Indigenous Services Canada representative say to us, why do they need to be fire rated? Well, first off, there's 20 people inside that room, each classroom, that give me quite a reason to have them fire rated. And today the codes call for 20-minute fire rated doors.
What has the school been doing to bolster safety while these issues persist? I understand that there's more security at the school now.
Well, we've hired security to check everybody's bag in and out, and and we lock the doors, and you have to buzz yourself, get buzzed in, and you have to be recognized by a staff member or security at least to come into the school. But, who's to say? Because we have 4 portable classrooms out in the back. It's, the kids have to leave the school to go to school, right? They come in, they just go in one door and out the other. When Canada talks about every child matter and about reconciliation, that's not reconciliation. That's another form of residential school where the kids are leaving school to go to school.
What are you calling for in regards to these issues? What would you like to see done?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing right now. Here's what's happening. My kids are being deprived of an education because they're only going half days. My school is concrete. We have air conditioning. It's not hooked up. We've asked the department numerous times, give us a hand here. Let us get our air conditioning up, and let our kids go to school. Let our school be safe. So we have a band council resolution that we signed on behalf of the community that effective June 30th, Lake Manitoba School will be shut down. It's not a threat by any means. It's a health and safety concern for my people.
What would need to happen in order for the school not to be shut down?
Fix the doors. I've reached out to the Winnipeg Foundation to ask. I've reached out to everybody and anybody who listened to me to ask. I've met with Minister Gull Masty. I met with Jennifer Wheatley, the ADM. I met with Rod Graham, the regional director for Manitoba, Jody Nibbs, everybody and their dog, whoever will listen. I met with them, and I'm talking on deaf ears, and everybody says, well, I'll talk to this person, I'll talk to that person. That doesn't do anything. Fix my doors so I can keep the doors open at my school.
So that is Cornell McLean, the chief of Lake Manitoba First Nation, which is pretty much at the northeast side up at the tip of Lake Manitoba. Cornell McLean speaking with Chloe Friesen there on CBC yesterday. CBC did reach out to Indigenous Services Canada for some comment on this story and the concerns raised by McLean. A spokesperson for ISC told us the department's working with Lake Manitoba leadership to address the school problems, including the broken internal doors. Part of that statement reads, quote, "To date, ISC has provided $7 million for renovations and updates to the existing school, $1 million of which was identified for new doors and windows. A new school for Lake Manitoba First Nation is not identified for funding at this time." And that's the end of the quote.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
It looks like this is maybe a one-day blip when farmers across the province need hot and dry.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take.
In general, it's harder to find a job even if you're educated.
I'm Marjorie Dowhouse. From 12:15 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
When I was 5 or 6, my parents gave me seeds and helped me plant them. That was probably close to 70 years ago. And here I am still gardening.
It just brings everyone together. Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you weekdays on CBC.
6:23, really wet out there. Still some light rain in parts of Winnipeg. Very, very foggy west of Brandon. We got a call about that. This wet weather's going to continue, actually, through Winnipeg and Brandon. We might take a little bit of a short blip this morning without raindrops, but it should come back probably later today. Not as strong as yesterday, though. And up in Thompson, just a slight chance of showers for you early this morning. And our temperatures cool across the board. So a high of 22 for Winnipeg, 21 over in Brandon, and 15 today up in Thompson. Well, next on the show, speaking of call-ins and your phone can pretty much do anything. So it might not come as a big surprise that you can now use it to test your hearing. Mary Jane Hampton tells us how to do that and explains why everyone should keep tabs on their ears in her view. Hampton is a healthcare columnist for CBC Radio.
Hearing loss is a highly modifiable risk factor for dementia, where early intervention has been shown to reduce cognitive decline rates in older adults by nearly 50%. There's a large body of research supporting this conclusion, but a particularly compelling study done by Johns Hopkins followed more than 600 adults for 12 years and found that mild hearing loss doubled dementia risk. Moderate loss tripled risk, and those people who had a severe hearing impairment were 5 times more likely to develop dementia. We also know that hearing impairment can lead to social isolation as well as increasing the risks of falling, so self-monitoring of your hearing is just as important as monitoring your blood pressure or blood sugar or heart rhythm, all the things we do quite routinely these days. On average, people wait 10 years before getting help for hearing impairment, by which time they've lost valuable ground with their cognitive health. It's actually a significant public health concern for young adults who are traditionally considered to be a low-risk group. According to the World Health Organization, over 1 billion young adults, 12 to 34 years of age, are at risk of hearing impairment. Avoidable hearing loss due to unsafe listening practices includes personal audio devices, entertainment venues, and digital environments. It's estimated that about 17% of teenagers and 19% of those aged 20 to 29 already have some level of sensorineural hearing loss. There are a few ways that you can test your hearing whenever you want to. If you have an iPhone or an iPad running the latest iOS, along with a pair of second or third generation AirPod Pro, all you need to do is get in a quiet room, put in your AirPods, and go to Settings. You'll see the AirPods, and then you can tap into its menu to take a hearing test. It's also in the Health app, if you have that. Johns Hopkins University has also set up a free app to test hearing. It's called the Hearing Number app, and it was developed by the Bloomberg School of Public Health. And it helps you test your hearing and track your hearing health over time. It's totally free. All you need to do is go to the Apple App Store or Google Play Store and download the app on your iOS or Android smartphone. And then you wear your headphones or earbuds in a quiet place. It takes 5 minutes to test your hearing levels, and it will give you a hearing number, which again is also the name of the app, for each ear. And that represents the softest sound you can hear, measured in decibels. The higher the number, the louder sounds need to be for you to hear them. And you can save your results to see how your hearing fluctuates or changes as you age. And that trend line is actually what's most important to monitor.
Mary Jane Hampton, a healthcare columnist for CBC Radio. Well, now let's use our ears to hear Katie St. Germain. Her release party is tomorrow night at the Park Theatre for her new EP, 100 Proof. This is her latest single on CBC. It's called Salt in the Wound on 89.3 FM.
I stormed in like a hurricane, 82 degrees, but I'm bringing the flame. You said goodbye with a stupid grin. Screw this heartbreak, I'm drinking again. Bartender, don't play that slow song. Need something loud I can dance on. Kick off my boots and feel that sand. Getting over you with my new best friend. Salt in the wound and fire in the glass. Burning down, baby, kiss my past. Pour another shot of silver Patron. Yeah, I ain't sad, I'm just moving on. Feeling good, feeling bulletproof. Twist another lime. Throwing salt in the wound, yeah. Throwing salt in the wound. Hours slipping by in the shade. No work getting done, it's a good drinking day. Peaches buzzing under the sun. Haven't thought about him since the first one. So DJ, crank up the jam. I'm done with boys who don't give a damn. No tears in my margarita glass. I'm a sun-kissed ex, moving on fast. Salt in the wound and fire in the glass. Burn it down, baby, kiss my past. Pour another shot of silver Patron. Yeah, I ain't sad, I'm just moving on. Feeling good, feeling bulletproof. Twist another lime. Throwing salt in the wound, yeah. Gonna forget about those sad girl days. Let the tide roll in and wash it all away. Salt in the wound and fire in the glass. Burn
Katie
it
St.
down,
Germain. Tomorrow night, you can check out her live at the Winnipeg Park Theatre. And she's going to be releasing her new EP, 100 Proof. This is the latest single from it, called Salt in the Wound. You can check that out tomorrow. Right now, it's time for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. Light rain out there right now, and we're going to see these showers end this morning. Right now, we're at 17 degrees, a high of 22, but very humid, and expect thunderstorms to begin again this afternoon. 3 tornadoes touched down in southern Manitoba yesterday afternoon. 2 were near Carman, 1 near Manitou. Environment Canada says a 4th twister was reported southeast of Dauphin, but the evidence there was not sufficient. No damage was reported from any of the tornadoes. Jorge Angeles noticed a storm whipping up on his way home from work around 4:30 yesterday afternoon. He was driving to Darlingford from his job in Winkler on Highway 3 when he saw the clouds starting to rotate. Angeles went home, picked up his wife, and they followed the rotating cloud as it moved northeast of Darlingford. He says it was more than 5 minutes later before he got a warning from Environment Canada on his phone. We asked Angeles if he would have followed the storm had he known there was a warning.
Probably not. I will I would have been like following news and probably here at home with my wife in the basement or making a plan to, I don't know, go somewhere safe, yeah.
You can see his photo on our website this morning at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Pride Winnipeg says no military personnel in uniform will be allowed to participate in this Sunday's parade. But Pride President Barry Carlinzig says members are welcome to walk in everyday clothes. Carlinzig says Winnipeg police uniforms have not been permitted in the parade since 2017. Last year, 17 Wing at the Canadian Forces Base in Winnipeg was asked not to bring military vehicles to the parade. Carlinzig says their latest policy is based on community feedback.
It's about the fact that queer community is hurting right now with what we see around the world and the large amount of individuals that are immigrating here from those countries fleeing where military is corrupt, police is corrupt.
A spokesperson says Pride Winnipeg, a spokesperson at 17 Wing says Pride Winnipeg asked them to not participate and they are honoring that request. Now, Todd Ross, who co-chairs Rainbow Veterans, says Pride Winnipeg's new policy is exclusionary. You can hear more on this story coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. The Trump administration is planning more tariffs for many of its trading partners, including Canada. The levy, 10% or more. It comes in a report released early this morning by the U.S. Trade Representative. It accuses Canada and dozens of other countries of importing goods made with forced labor. The report criticizes them for failing to address the issue and calls that inaction unacceptable, saying it creates an uneven playing field for American companies paying legal wages. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. The Winnipeg Indigenous Friendship Centre has a new home with plans to grow even more over the next few years. Grace Wavy writes an Ojibwe word every day in the Elders Room on McGregor Street. Wavy hopes to welcome people to that new space, which opened this spring. Community members can get help filling out forms, finding resources, and they can drop in for workshops.
I'm hoping that it gives them like a sense of belonging, some hope, and if they need help, we're here. I'm just hoping that they use us to help with their lives.
Now, the former Indian and Métis Friendship Centre was on Robinson Street. It was shut down in 2018 after losing funding. The building then was badly vandalized. Officials have a 5-year plan to return to that former location and build a new friendship centre along with the seniors' residence. A 17-year-old Winnipeg boy has died in a crash west of Kenora. Ontario Provincial Police were called to Highway 17 just before 2 yesterday afternoon. The vehicle the teen was driving and a semi-truck collided. The driver of the semi was not hurt. That crash closed the highway in that area for several hours. Well, Game 1 in the Stanley Cup Final Series.
And the clock drains, and the Golden Knights take Game 1 in the 2026 Stanley Cup Final.
The Vegas Golden Knights, as you heard there, beating the Carolina Hurricanes last night, 5-4 the final to win the first game of their Stanley Cup Final Series. That was a high-scoring match. Game 2 goes tomorrow night. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into what's happening in the weather forecast. Abby, what do you know?
Yeah, you might be waking up to showers. Some areas waking up to cloudy stats, but definitely we will get this break from these showers we saw overnight across the southern regions. Well, if you look into the northern end, you're seeing sunshine already there. And just be prepared, the showers will taper off and then return later in the day. That's what I see in the forecast for southern Manitoba today. For Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region, we're seeing light rain. Temperatures at the Forks and at the airport apart this time. 17 degrees. Expect morning temperatures to really hover around 17, 18 before we climb to a high of 22 later with humid conditions as well. We see the UV index on the high side. And the showers and thunderstorms will return sometime late in the afternoon into the overnight period before we see a mix of sun and clouds tomorrow. Now, across the southern regions, trekking from Morden towards the Headingley area this morning around Port de la Prairie, we're also seeing showers there, 17 degrees, warming up to 23. Brandon, you are sitting at 15 with lots of fog really present in outlying areas and also into deep Brandon this morning. So look out for those fog in the region. You warm up to 21. Dauphin is sitting at 15. You see your high around 20 degrees today. Gimli and most of the areas in the Interlake region, we're seeing showers there. 18 degrees at this time. You get to 21 later in the day. Then we go into the central part and all the way up north the part, Flin Flon, Norway House. We're seeing temperatures around 10 degrees. A mix of rainy conditions. Some areas seeing cloudy conditions. Highs will be around 16. Thompson, Ninley, Gillam, we're seeing cloudy skies. Temperatures between 3 and 6 degrees. Highs will be between 14 and 18 depending on where you are. And then into Tudor Lake this morning, sunny conditions there, 3 degrees at this time, getting to 18. Churchill on the York region, sunny conditions also there, around 5 degrees. Right now, you warm up to 11 later. So it's more about showers in the south, and we're seeing this sunny trend further north you go this morning. But overall, it's still going to be mild. Winnipeg kind of cooling after some afternoon storms that we will be seeing later in the day. But for today, expect a high of 22. Right now, it's 17 with light rain outside.
Well, we needed the rain when you just look at the wet stuff, right? And everything's going to be blooming and popping today like crazy. And if you have tickets to the ball game mid-morning, I mean, you're still going to need your rain gear because Blue Cross Park will be full of fans here in Winnipeg to cheer on the Gold Eyes at 11 o'clock. They lost to the Sioux Falls Canaries. They'll have another shot today at 11. Last night they lost 11-7, and if you were there, you probably got really wet, I suspect, because there was a 30-minute game delay, and then they picked it up again to continue. So enjoy it. Sometimes a ball game in the rain can be fun, actually.
Sure.
I never liked playing it, though, Corey, because I played outfield, and inevitably there'd be some puddle, and the ball would splash through, and you'd be all wet, or you'd slide, and you're so dirty after those games.
But you could do a good, like the penguin slide, though, if you have to dive for the ball. It's the best.
I was never that good. I slid once, and I still remember it all these years later. Okay, what's going on in the actual commute?
Yeah, so just a heads up here. The city posted this warning that sometime between 5 and 7 a.m., all eastbound lanes of Abenoji-Mikina between Newmarket Boulevard and Pembina Highway southbound is going to be closed for just about a 10-minute stretch for bridge construction. So it may have already happened, but may still happen or may be happening right now. So if you're noticing something weird going on around there, it should only last for about 10 minutes or so. It won't be a problem at all after 7 o'clock. So that is Abenoji-Mikina between Newmarket Boulevard and Pembina Highway there. Also got a call from John on the commuter line. He said that Brandon, just west of Brandon, is very foggy right now. So just heads up if you're hitting the highways around there this morning. Other than that, though, if you do see something else going on, if you're walking, your bike, and you're driving, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey Funk.
Thank you.
Chrisley Ramlakan here now with business news this morning. Hello to you.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So the U.S., as we've been hearing, considering new tariffs that could affect Canada after Dominic LeBlanc returned, and things aren't looking very good. What do we know so far about all this?
Yeah, so the Trump administration is thinking of imposing tariffs of 10% or more on products from dozens of major trading partners, including Canada, following a probe into imports of goods allegedly made with forced labor. So like I was saying, Canada, Mexico, Taiwan, the United Kingdom, and many other countries could face tariffs for allegedly failing to enforce a forced labor import ban. So the U.S. says this creates a dynamic where American workers are forced to compete globally on an unlevel playing field. And a 12.5% tariff would be imposed on countries like China, Japan, India, South Korea, Brazil, Switzerland, and dozens of others. So like you were just mentioning there, this comes as Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc just met with his U.S. counterpart yesterday in Washington. And LeBlanc admits the trip was not without turbulence, but says Canada remains focused on the outcome. So Canada has sent a letter to the U.S. and Mexico supporting the renewal of the CUSMA agreement for another 16 years. And he says these proposed tariffs are not unexpected.
It's not a surprise that the United States initiated these investigations. We have made submissions to the United States that we think are very significant in addressing the concerns that the United States has raised for a number of months or a number of conversations that we've had with the Americans.
Now, Canada does have its own rules when it comes to prohibiting the sale of goods that are made through forced labor. But the U.S. says as a result of this investigation, it's not good enough. So, what they're talking about here is if a raw material, say, came into Canada and was used to make a product, it could face new tariffs. So potentially things made in sectors and countries where the issue of forced labor has been raised in the past. So think of things like rice, coffee, fish, and even tobacco. But CUSMA-compliant goods would be exempt from these new tariffs. But this latest barrage of proposed tariffs is likely to unsettle key trading partners. Just 2 weeks ago, the European Union approved a tariff deal to cap tariffs on most EU exports at 15%. And Trump recently returned from a visit to China, where the two countries discussed expanding market access and investment. Now, the new tariffs would not take effect immediately. They are subject to public comment and review, and public hearings are set to begin July 7th. And also, Marcy, some observers say this is just a way for Trump to get around the Supreme Court. Remember, he had tariffs before that were struck down by them. So, that's what also some people are thinking this strategy is for.
Let's move to energy. As conflict in the Middle East continues, how are stockpiles looking ahead of the busy summer season?
Well, the International Energy Agency says global oil inventories could hit critical levels ahead of a peak summer demand if draw continues at its current pace. So fuel demand typically peaks, of course, in the summer when people are driving and flying on holiday. And it could take 6 to 8 months in the best case scenario to reopen the Strait of Hormuz if an agreement was reached today. So that could make a further IEA coordinated emergency stock release a possibility. But that is not currently being discussed right now. Around half of the initial 400 million barrel coordinated release from March is yet to hit the market. But still, the IEA says emergency stock releases are only a temporary stopgap measure and will not solve the problem. It says the scale of supply losses are so big that the reduction would have to come from the demand side. So demand destruction is where high prices force consumers to cut back on buying until supply and demand are more balanced. And, I'm sure people wouldn't want to have to face that choice either.
No. And let's talk about Tim Hortons before you go. They're shutting down their credit card program.
Yes, that's right. So the company says it is looking at new ways to bring value to Canadians. So the credit card launched 3 years ago, but yes, it is shutting down on October 1st. Now, the cards will still work after that date, but will be managed by Neo Financial, and transactions will not earn you Tim's reward points. So Tim Hortons says eligible customers can choose to upgrade to a Neo Financial MasterCard that includes cashback if they want to do that instead. And the company launched their credit card program in a move it said would appeal to millions of Canadians seeking better and accessible financial products. And it wasn't the coffee chain's first foray into the money game. So it partnered with CIBC in 2014 on the Double Double Visa card, but that was also discontinued in 2019.
All right, we'll leave it there this morning. Crystalie, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Live with Business News on CBC, that's Crystalie Ramlakan. Well, let's get some more detail on a story you might have heard in the news this morning. Pride Winnipeg is saying that no military personnel in uniform will be allowed to participate in this Sunday's parade. They say members are welcome to walk in everyday clothes. This is a new policy this year. They say with all the wars happening around the world, it can be triggering to some in the LGBTQ plus community. Some, though, don't see it that way. Todd Ross is co-chair of Rainbow Veterans and is a survivor of Canada's LGBT purge between the 1950s and the 1990s. The purge saw queer workers demoted and fired based on their sexual orientation. He calls the move disappointing. He spoke with CBC's Rosanna Hempel about this yesterday.
There's a large number of US LGBTQIA plus Canadians who had served through the period that we now call the LGBT purge, as well as after that. And there was that shame that was associated from our service, from the way that we were treated with the purge, and the fact that many of us were told that we needed to leave, or were not really given options to leave, or people had to hide who they were when they were in the military. When we look at a policy like Pride Winnipeg has taken, it kind of puts us back into that closet again. It's I fought for 30 years to have pride in my service, and now I'm being told by an organization that I should not have pride in my service, that I have to be less than in order to participate. And so the policy, and it's not just Pride Winnipeg that's done this, there have been other prides across Canada in the last few years that have looked at a similar policy. It's exclusionary for particularly federal civil servants, for people in the military, for people in the RCMP, as well as those serving in the police. And what it does, I think, is it takes away that dialogue that we're having with those organizations. It's been a long road to get organizations like the military, like the RCMP and police services, to embrace equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives. And they're working hard, and we see that work. There's still a lot to be done. But Pride becomes a place where we can continue to push, where we can call for accountability within those organizations. And by removing them or removing part of their participation, it kind of, it is demoralizing to the employees of those organizations, telling them they can't fully participate. But it also kind of takes away some of the pressures for them to be more involved in Pride. So there's a number of reasons, but for me personally, I see it as not being able to fully participate and not being able to reclaim that pride of service as a veteran. When you go to Pride, though, and you see somebody in uniform who's wearing rainbows all over their uniform, it takes away that stigma of that enforcer. When you see a police officer who has rainbows on their shoulders as part of their uniform, or police cars that are painted, or fire trucks painted with Pride colors, it takes away the stigma, or it takes away that imposing threat that they may have seen before.
That's Todd Ross's perspective. Todd is co-chair of Rainbow Veterans and a survivor of Canada's LGBT purge between the 1950s and 1990s. If you want to read more about the decision for Pride Winnipeg to say no military personnel in uniform allowed to participate in this Sunday's parade and their new policy this year, you can read more of Rosanna's story at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
The puck may have dropped on the playoffs, but the news doesn't stop for hockey. I'm Brittany Greenslade, host of CBC Winnipeg News at 6. To get your local news, stream CBC Winnipeg News at 6 24/7 on CBC Gem, the CBC News app, and selected streaming platforms. CBC Winnipeg News at 6, your local news on your favorite streaming device.
10 to 7 right now, and it is the morning after 3 tornadoes touched down in this province. We're going to hear more in the news. No damage reported, and so we are just waking up and understanding more about what's going to happen today. Now, I can tell you today's calmer, but it is still wet. Lots of rain across the province right now. It's 17 in Winnipeg, and it's very foggy around Brandon. Well, next on the show, U.S.-Canada Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc is back after a short but potentially significant visit to Washington, as you just heard Crystalie Ramlakan talking about in her business news. The Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement's up for renewal July 1st, and ahead of the visit, LeBlanc issued a formal letter that called CUSMA, quote, highly beneficial to each of our countries and to the integrated North American economy, end quote. But all signals from the White House indicate that Trump does not want a straightforward renewal of CUSMA. And as you also heard in the national news this morning, we're now looking and trying to understand tariffs. Once again, some different tariffs. Viet Vu's here to talk about the meeting in some more detail. Manager of Economic Research at the DAIS at Toronto Metropolitan University. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
Why don't we start with this letter? What's the significance of this formal letter that LeBlanc issued ahead of his trip?
Well, Marcy, you nailed it, right? The letter is a formality, a box checking exercise, if you will, and how the process of the Kuzma review is supposed to go. The letter can say either we want to renew the agreement, which it did, to leave the agreement entirely, or to move to a year by year review until the deal is up in 10 years before the July 1st meeting. With this letter, Canada gets to send a cheap signal that we tried to work in good faith to save an agreement that was beneficial to all, and that it would have been the Americans that ripped up the deal that forced us into the current situation.
So it's somewhat, in your view, about putting things on the record ahead of whatever's going to happen moving forward.
I think that's exactly it, because I think both Canada, US, and Mexico, all three of us, have projected our preferred path month ago, if not a year ago. This just formalizes the process and is the protocol of how these complex negotiations start.
We actually have a clip we're going to play of the Prime Minister here, because right now the U.S. seems more focused on negotiating with Mexico, as we've been talking about, with 2 days of talks between those countries last week. So the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, was asked about that specifically yesterday.
There's a series of issues, technical issues that they have with Mexico, they have with us, which is why there's a bifurcated discussion. So 30 issues or so with us, more than almost 60, I think, with Mexico at current count.
So Carney's saying there that there are outstanding trade issues between the U.S. and Mexico. I mean, should any of what he's saying comfort Canadians when it comes to the negotiations, in your view?
I mean, unfortunately not, because I don't think the numbers matter here. And the irritants, Donald Trump has let us know very, very well. Common between Canada and Mexico, they have to do with auto manufacturing, on how much American contents need to be in, and also commodity specific, such as steel and aluminum, and in Canada's case, also lumber. For Mexico, it has to do with security at the US-Mexico border. One new issue, though, for Canada will be the Canadian AI strategy being published this week. And the reason why it comes into trade is because the US seems to loom all over it, with Canada pursuing a multilateral alliance that excludes the US to build AI solutions, and also clear commitments to take actions to regulate American AI giants. So I would be surprised if the US doesn't react and make new demands based on that strategy and increase that 30 number to closer to 40.
The U.S. obviously is by far the biggest player here. How much leverage does Canada actually have in these talks?
A lot. We produce a lot of electricity and other energy assets and other commodities that the Americans depend on. But the most important leverage Mark Carney has is time. Donald Trump and the Republican Party is facing a very difficult midterm election in 5 months in November, one where they're expected to lose control of Congress. Mark Carney does not have to face another election for a lot longer, and since any new deal has to go through congressional approval, the timing of the midterm makes it much harder for Donald Trump to pass a radically new deal.
What are you watching for as we move forward here toward this deadline?
Well, I think this is where media literacy will come into play, right? To really distinguish between cheap talk and costly signals. The new tariff that you mentioned at the beginning is cheap talk, accusing us of letting forced labor goods, even when he exempts Kuzma goods. And so it's actually not going to affect this. But the US lowering steel tariffs from 25% to 15% for some goods and as low as 10% that Canadian producers are eligible for, that's definitely a costly signal that shows their own weakness that the tariff has not achieved their own objectives. And so really distinguishing what is just brandishing cheap talk and costly signals will be the most important.
And the most difficult potentially as well, I'm afraid, right, Viet? All right. Thank you for your time always. Appreciate your analysis.
Thank you.
That's Viet Vu with us live, Manager of Economic Research at the DAIS, which is at Toronto Metropolitan University, where we reached him this morning in Toronto, that is. We are at 4 minutes now to 7 o'clock. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're locally with Information Radio here on CBC Manitoba, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. And we can tell you in the weather forecast that light rain continues in parts of Winnipeg. It's 17 degrees, very foggy around Brandon and 15. Up in Thompson, mostly cloudy and 6. Winnipeg's high today, 22, and we are expecting, thunderstorms could begin again this afternoon. We have a risk even later this morning, so we're going to see what happens. With Humidex 28, showers and storms should end overnight. Then tomorrow, a chance of just a 30% chance of showers and a mix of sun and cloud. But it's wet for the next little while here, certainly today. Again, that high 22. In traffic, we have a couple of things we're going to report in a moment. I just want to tell you what's coming up in the next hour of the show. After 7 o'clock, we are going to talk to a Filipino Winnipegger who chose Canada's winters over Australia's summers when she was looking for somewhere to move. Because as it turns out, she says, we're pet friendly. So her story is coming up. Also, medical contributor Dr. Samir Gupta will join us with the latest on a proposal to ban energy drinks for kids under 16 in Quebec. We'll talk about the science behind that proposal. And as you might have heard in the news this week, Manitoba is stepping up efforts to educate people about the importance of measles vaccinations. We have live the Deputy Chief of Provincial Public Health in the next hour of Information Radio. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells, who's in our news center with headlines.
Good morning. Well, no damage reported, but 3 tornadoes touched down in southern Manitoba yesterday afternoon. 2 were near Carman, 1 near Manitou, and Environment Canada says a 4th twister was reported southeast of Dauphin, but not enough evidence there to confirm that it, in fact, was a tornado. We're going to hear from Jorge Angeles, who saw that storm whipping up on his way home from work yesterday on Highway 3, so that's coming up. And a 17-year-old Winnipeg boy has died in a crash west of Kenora. Ontario Provincial Police were called to Highway 17 just before 2 yesterday afternoon. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, when it comes to what's happening in the traffic situation, Corey just popped in to remind us that you should be all clear through Abinogi-Mi'kmaq right now. They had an early morning construction 10-minute shutdown planned for part of that stretch between Newmarket and Pembina, but that should be complete. So you should be free through that area. But we do still have that fog to remind you of. Very, very foggy west of Brandon, according to John on our commuter line. So take it easy through the area if you're driving in that part of Westman. And stay with us because World Report's coming up next right here on CBC.
On The Current. I'm Mark Kelly.
There's a very strong positive case for Canada, a strong Alberta in a united Canada.
Albertans will vote in October on a question of separatism. It's a polarizing topic, but the new group Lead Not Leave is working to build a middle ground to make Alberta and Canada better together. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Washington is blindsiding Ottawa by proposing a brand new 10% tariff on Canadian imports. The U.S. claims the new levy would be for failing to effectively ban goods made with forced labor. It comes hours after Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc spoke with U.S. Trade Czar Jameson Greer about renewing the CUSMA Trade Pact. Following the talks, LeBlanc said he had cautious optimism about the negotiations.
All of us know that the road to conclusions in these conversations is sometimes not a straight line. You can suddenly hit clear air turbulence when you don't expect it, and sometimes you can have a very smooth ride with no turbulence, so I remain optimistic that we'll focus on the latter.
LeBlanc flew back to Ottawa last night and could now be facing a radically worsened trade landscape with the U.S. Greer has said existing tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and automobiles are a permanent fixture, and they will not be lifted even if a new CUSMA deal is ratified. Police in Britain say they're reviewing their anti-racism guidance after an outcry over the treatment of a student who died last year. The 18-year-old was handcuffed and arrested after being stabbed. His killer falsely accused him of racism. Julia Chapman has more from London.
Anger turning to violence on the streets of Southampton.
Off our streets! Racist police!
Hundreds gathered in the British city last night to protest the treatment of Henry Novak. The 18-year-old was murdered in December.
You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? Don't think you have, mate.
Police have released footage of the incident, which shows officers handcuffing Novak, ignoring his plea that he couldn't breathe because he'd been stabbed. His attacker had claimed to be the victim of racial abuse.
Two-tier policing is disgusting in this country.
A protester in Southampton echoing criticism from figures on the right of British politics. They argue that police have swung from being institutionally racist to anti-white. Parm Sandhu, the director of the London Policing College, denies this.
Police officers do not go to work and think, if I see a black person, a white person, I am going to treat them differently.
Novak's father has condemned his son's treatment, but he insists that he doesn't want his death used to sow further tension. Sarah Jones is the UK Minister for Policing and Crime.
What I would urge people to do is to allow justice to take its course.
Novak's killer, Vikram Digwa, has been sentenced to life in prison, but scrutiny of the police's actions is only just beginning. England's police watchdog is investigating and will present a report later in the year. Julia Chapman, CBC News, London.
The U.S. and Iran have each launched a new wave of attacks. Sirens ring out overnight in Kuwait City. Officials there say its air defense systems intercepted missile and drone attacks. Kuwait's army accuses Iran of striking the country's international airport. At least one person is dead, several others injured. Iran says it launched attacks on U.S. bases and helicopters in a regional country in retaliation for overnight strikes on Qasem Island in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. military launched what it calls self-defense strikes overnight on some Iranian military targets. In Manitoba, hot and dry weather is fueling the wildfire risk across much of the province. 2 wildfires are burning out of control about an hour's drive northeast of Winnipeg. Local officials and residents are anxious about a potential repeat of 2025. Flames tore through more than 40 square kilometers in the region that year, and 2 people were killed. There are more questions about Alberta's upcoming referendum on separation, including whether a plan to leave Canada is even financially possible. Premier Danielle Smith says that her government is preparing a document outlining what costs Albertans would need to cover, and it's a big bill. Tristan Mottershed explains.
I think I came up with almost $400 billion worth of transitional costs that we'd have to assume.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says that's the estimated bill for the province to leave Canada, with an additional amount of $25 to $50 billion in the following years.
We want to be very realistic about what kind of costs and inconveniences people would have in their life if they decided to vote otherwise.
Chetan Dave, an economics professor at the University of Alberta, predicts it could be even higher.
I think it could be at least $500 billion, personally.
He believes a reaction of international capital and trade markets is going to be severe, which will ultimately lead to a more expensive bill. Alberta separatist Jeffrey Rath is not put off by the amount.
$400 billion? Who cares? We're paid off in 8 years. We put over $800 billion into Confederation through equalization in the last 30 years, right? If you put compound interest on that, Canada owes us $4 or $5 trillion.
Dave argues the separatists haven't fully worked out the cost of creating a brand new government out of nothing.
If it actually was a good idea in terms of costs and benefits, now and in the long term for me, my daughter, etc., sure, I would be on board. But the numbers literally that have been put out by the independent side do not work.
Alberta's Finance Minister Jason Nixon says the province is planning to release full details on separation costs in the coming months. Tris Mottershed, CBC News, Edmonton.
Some of the beluga whales remaining at Ontario's marine land could be going to Spain. They've been in limbo since the amusement park in Niagara Falls shuttered 2 years ago. Ottawa says it now endorses the rescue plan floated by several aquariums, and Lisa Shing has the details.
Give me water!
A complicated rescue of 2 beluga whales from an aquarium in Kharkiv, Ukraine 2 years ago. 12 hours in a truck, then a flight to Oceanographique Valencia, an aquarium in Spain. At the time, bombs reportedly dropping just hundreds of meters from their tanks. Now, that Spanish facility is one of 5 that could be home to some of the 30 remaining belugas at Marineland. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans says it has given its approval and has also issued some of the permits needed for the whales to cross international borders.
It's challenging, but it's not impossible.
Javier Almunia is a zoology professor at the University of La Laguna in Spain and says this kind of move to another aquarium is in the best interests of the mammals.
There is no need for adaptation because the animals already know this kind of environment.
The future of the whales at the former amusement park has been uncertain as it faces financial and regulatory hurdles. Last fall, Marineland threatened to euthanize them after Ottawa denied permits to send them to China. The belugas would also be split between aquariums in Atlanta and Georgia, as well as 2 SeaWorld locations in San Diego and San Antonio, Texas. The U.S.-based Association of Zoos and Aquariums tells CBC News there are still several steps and permits before a rescue can begin, including medical checks to make sure they're healthy enough to travel. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
60 Minutes veteran correspondent Scott Pelley is out of a job, fired by CBS.
I'm Scott Pelley. Those stories tonight on 60 Minutes.
Pelley had been with CBS for 37 years. It comes one day after he reportedly accused the broadcaster's new editor-in-chief of, quote, murdering 60 Minutes. His departure follows a string of high-profile dismissals at CBS. In a statement, Pelley accuses the network's new owner of casting 60 Minutes aside to curry favor with the Trump administration. And finally, it's a tight race for second place in the Los Angeles mayoral primary race. Incumbent Karen Bass has secured her place in November's election, but it's still too close to call in the battle between a reality star and a city council member. Steve Futterman reports.
There are still many votes to be counted, but at the moment, the former reality TV star Spencer Pratt is in second place. If it stays that way, he will advance to the November general election. Last night, Pratt was sounding confident.
I just believe there's a lot of Los Angeles that is so excited to hear. It's refreshing a non-politician. I don't want to be a politician. I wasn't ready. I didn't know I'd be the mayor, but I know what people want now.
Pratt has engaged in a largely insurgent populist campaign, describing Los Angeles as broken and how the city needs to have a new approach. His criticism of Karen Bass has focused on the way she handled last year's deadly wildfires. It has forced Bass to be on the defensive, but last night she was all positive.
Los Angeles is the city that I love. Los Angeles is the creative capital of the world, where we dream and we make our dreams come true.
While votes are still being counted, Bass is assured of finishing first. But the battle for second place isn't officially over. A progressive city council member, Nithya Raman, is in third place and mathematically could still overtake Pratt. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Los Angeles.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. Still a little drizzly out there in Winnipeg. We have light rain reported around the airport. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us today after some very, very active weather yesterday in our province. Heather's going to break down exactly what we know about what happened in just a moment in our headlines. You're on CBC's Morning Show Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. This half hour on the program, we're going to be talking about what is happening with measles. So you might have heard in the news this week that Manitoba is stepping up its efforts to educate people about the importance of measles vaccinations. The Deputy Chief Provincial Public Health Officer will join us live. That's in fact right just before 8 o'clock. Also this hour, we have Dr. Samir Gupta who's going to join us. Now, this is a different story. There's a proposal to ban energy drinks, outright have a ban for kids under 16 in Quebec. We're going to talk about the science behind that proposal and the dangers of energy drinks. So stay tuned. That's coming up as well. That's our medical column. He's filling in for Doc Bardwash. All right, Heather is here now to talk more about the tornadoes. Hi.
Yes, tornadoes, three of them confirmed, and a fourth one reported but not confirmed. Two of those tornadoes were near Carmen. One was near Manitou, and Environment Canada says that fourth twister was reported southeast of Dauphin, but the evidence there is insufficient. We're going to hear from a man who saw the storm whipping up on his way home from work on Highway 3 yesterday. He did take a photo of the rotating clouds. We've got that photo up on our website this morning. Pride Winnipeg's decision to ban military personnel in uniform from this year's parade is disappointing to an advocate for 2S LGBTQ plus veterans. Todd Ross says Pride Winnipeg's new policy is exclusionary. We're going to hear from him as well, coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
Heather, the rain sounded so good.
And it smelt amazing.
Didn't it? Yeah. I was just sitting in the house and listening to it. And this morning, actually, when we were coming in, when I was up sort of around 4 a.m, it was really pouring in my part of the city.
Yeah, it was too.
Yeah, it was hard to wake up. I love that pitter patter.
And lightning too yesterday. And as I saw it, I'm thinking, isn't lightning really good for gardens? Doesn't it release some sort of nitrogen that helps plants grow? I don't know. I just thought, wow.
What I noticed about it is it was almost like picture flash lightning.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's coming straight down in those lines and those cracks, but it was there were a lot of these big all sky
sheet
flashes.
lightning.
Yeah. Look at you with the terms. It's like you've done this a year or two.
It's so funny.
I didn't absorb that term. I like it. Yeah, it's true, actually. Technical. Sheet lightning. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know the term for this hail that I'm calling cauliflower hail. I've yet to confirm it, but I saw some photos to confirm the photos yesterday that I saw. I believe they came from a site that I followed before in Winnipeg. But if you did see any hail where you're at, we'd love to know what it looked like. Was it smooth? Was it bumpy? And send us some pics. Radio 893 at cbc.ca. Okay, let's get into today. As I mentioned this morning, much calmer for now. Still gray out there, Abby.
Yeah, gray outside. It's going to be a damp one to start your Wednesday. The province really seeing more like showers and thunderstorm risks to the southern regions, while up north we're beginning to see those transition towards a brighter and a clearer skies. Sunshine making its presence felt in the Churchill area this morning. Here in Winnipeg, actually, we're beginning with light rain, current temperatures around 17 degrees. Now expect the showers to taper off sometime this morning. Then we'll see some cloudy skies. Then we'll see the return of risk of showers and thunderstorms again as we climb towards a high of 22 later in the day. Winds will get gusty at some point, turning light, and then expect more showers to come during the day. That should end as we get into the overnight period. And for Thursday, we're going to see a mix of sun and clouds. Similar conditions across the southern regions, except for the Brandon area where we have the heavy fog being present there. So take it easy. But Winnipeg right now, it is 17, getting to 22.
Speaking of the fog, Corey.
Yeah, we just got a call on the commuter line from John, who said that fog west of Brandon there, pretty poor visibility conditions around there. So just look out for that. Other than that, haven't heard of any other major issues out there. But if you're walking your bike and you're driving, you see something, maybe there's some hydroplaning going on under a bridge, let me know. 204-788-3093.
Well, let's start with a nice story, especially if you love animals like I do. 3 years ago, Trix DeCeo decided it was time for a change. So she decided to leave the Philippines. She lived there all her life, but she was going to start fresh in a new country. But while she explored the idea of moving somewhere like Spain or Australia, she did choose Canada. Not for employment, not for the weather, but because it would be easier, it turns out, to bring her 2 rescue pets with her. Jojo, her cat, and Kimchi, her dog. Trix DeCio wrote about that decision in a CBC Manitoba first-person piece for our website that you can check out. She was a participant in CBC Manitoba's writing workshops last month, but she's here to talk about her decision to move here, and she's live in studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
So tell me a little bit first about your pet Kimchi, your dog. What's his story? Where did you find him, or how did you come to adopt him?
Okay, so I recently moved out of my childhood home, and I was living alone, and I've always had pets throughout, my life. So I was looking for a companion, and while I was looking, I was just, browsing, and I found like a picture of a very dirty, very matted poodle, and like under him is like the equivalent of $20. So I'm like, is this a scam? Is this like what's this, right? Because usually when you post pets, it's for a price. So I inquired. The owner wasn't very responsive, but he was like, "Yeah, check him out if you have time," and that's what I did.
When you went there, what did you see?
He was very dirty.
Where was he living? Under a car?
Under a car, yeah, on their garage. The owner wasn't there even to meet me, and it was just some helper who was like welcoming me and like, oh yeah, he usually stays here, and then he's friendly, so he greeted me, and then like I saw him go out, and she was like, that's fine, he'll come back, and I was like, oh no, this is not a good place for a dog. And
so you handed over the $20. Why did you know he was yours? Why did you connect with this, as you described, dirty little poodle who'd been living under the car here?
I did crouch and tried to call him, and he went to me, and he was very friendly. So I'm like, I think I need to take this dog because otherwise he would continue living under the car.
Yeah. So let's talk about your decision to leave the Philippines. Now you have Kimchi, and you have your cat by then too, I think, Jojo. Yes. Jolo, pardon me. Jolo, yeah. So what kind of cat is Jolo? Just because we have a picture of this little poodle, right?
Yes.
So what kind of cat is... Oh, and there's photos coming up for us here. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see. That's Kimchi, the little black poodle. There he is. Well, he's all happy and puffy and clean now. What does it say on his little, he's wearing a bib?
Yeah, that's Babe Magnet, I think. It's one of the bandanas that we got from a pet event.
Cute. Look at him with his fluffy hair. Okay, and Jolo is how old, your cat?
Jolo is almost 6 years now.
Okay. And how old is Kimchi now?
14.
Okay. So you have these animals. Fast forward, you decide to leave the Philippines. Why did you choose Canada instead of Spain and Australia? Tell me when you were looking into that decision.
Yeah, so it was the COVID years, and I think it made people think about things, and including me. So I was thinking like, oh, I need to change, and I want to, be in a different place, and I think it's now or never. And when I was looking at requirements, when I was looking at opportunities, so Spain was one of them. They had immigration pathways. Australia also had immigration pathways, and Canada also had immigration pathways. So I was looking into the details, but then I thought like, oh, Spain, I need to learn a new language, which might be hard for adjusting to a new place. And then Australia versus Canada. So Australia, beaches, koalas, wildlife, and Canada, snow, like mountains, etc. So I was also looking into the requirements, and I was thinking, like, if I were to move, then I also need to bring the animals with me, my pets with me. And when I was looking at each of the requirements, I saw that Australia required quarantine for animals coming from countries that had rabies risk. And even though your dog is like fully vaccinated, like free from rabies, just the fact that it comes from a country that has it, you need to quarantine the dog to non-rabies country.
So to interject here, when you were thinking about the idea of Kimchi being in quarantine, what did that make you feel like?
I thought like 6 months. That's not possible because he's already 12 years when I was, deciding this or approaching that. He almost senior and still very active, but I don't see him, thriving in a quarantine environment and like with strangers and with people that he didn't know.
So you chose Canada.
Yes.
Yeah. Why was it important for you to bring him with you?
I think it's just part of my values. Like when I commit to an animal and a pet, it's a lifelong companion and it's family. So when you're moving and when you're looking for things to do or to change up your lifestyle, you consider your family. And that's what I thought when I was, moving here and immigrating. And I'm like, I need to bring them.
What reaction do you get when people learn you chose Canada based on your pets?
Well, they say like, oh, that's so cute. That's touching. Not a lot of people actually know that it's, one of the factors. It's a big factor why I'm here and why I'm not in Australia, in Melbourne or in Sydney.
Tell me a little bit about their take on Canada, because we're seeing these images and like Kimchi now, this little poodle is like, you've got a photo of him by the ledge. And as I said, he's wearing all these bandanas and living his best life. It took him some time though, I understand.
Yes. So he was already 13 years old. So he's very grumpy when he arrived. I guess, the long travel from Manila to Korea to Vancouver to
How did you do
Winnipeg.
with the snow the first time?
And he first experienced snow without knowing what it is. So he landed on the snow and he had jelly legs. Like, what is this? And he just fell to his
Flattened
side.
out.
Yeah.
Yep. Like a lot of us, actually, like a lot of people too, and not just pets. And then he eventually warmed up to it?
Yes, he did. So it took him some few months before he was okay with the new environment, okay with the new place. It's also a strange place for him, right? We are in a different apartment. So he had to adjust to that as well. He is kind of losing his eyesight also. So that can be very scary to a senior poodle. So it took, months, weeks before he finally was back to his prancing puppy self. He would, get eager already whenever we're asking him to walk and
Now he's a Manitoban.
Yes.
And Jolo apparently adjusted really well. We should just say Jolo was a rescue cat too, but no prob.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how having them here has helped you adjust to your new life in this country.
Yeah, it can get lonely, especially you don't have your family, your friends, the network of people that you're used to. And then having them here is, very comforting if you're adapting to new changes or stress or because you're looking for jobs or you're looking for, things to do and a lot of transitions happening. And it's very grounding to have your pets, your companions with you.
And you become involved in animal rescue too, to find some connection.
Yes.
I want to ask you about taking part before you go in CBC Manitoba's writing workshop last month, where you worked on your personal story, and people can read this story online this morning. But what was it like to share your writing and get feedback with other Manitobans that like to write?
Yeah, I really didn't know what to expect when I signed up for that workshop, but I'm very, very glad I did. So I was surprised that, I'm part of this small group of participants, and there was a long wait list, and they took us from the idea up to the draft, so the whole writing process. And it was very enlightening to also hear other people's stories. So more than, I guess, the writing itself, it's more of listening to people, them sharing their own stories. And I think that's just always fascinating to learn about, other people.
Well, I really appreciated your piece of writing and reading it. And
Thank
I love
you.
having you here today to tell us about it too, Trix. Thank you very much for being with us.
You're welcome.
And a special treat if you got to see her adorable pets, if you're watching the show stream live while we were talking there. You can read her piece at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Trix DeCio with us in studio, Filipino Manitoban, who now makes Winnipeg her home, along, of course, with her cat, Jolo, and dog, Kimchi.
Strongest narrative, but details aren't imperative. What matters is the way it ends, and they've got 16 mutual friends. Animal animal spirits. It is not heartfelt lyrics. Put them together and we can hear it. All everyone knows. This is not animal spirits. It is not heartfelt lyrics. Put them together and we can hear it. Where the story goes.
7:25. If you're out walking the dog this morning, you won't get rained on in this moment, and you might want to do it because it's going to rain again later. 17 degrees right now in Winnipeg. Lots of fog to the west in Brandon. You're listening to CBC's Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show. Thanks for joining us. Well, let's get to what's happening in morning sports. Paul McGowan joins us now. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Marcy.
So let's start with the Stanley Cup final. Vegas earning a Game 1 win.
A 5-4 final for them in what was an entertaining game number one. And Vegas actually started this game down 2-0, and they trailed just 25 seconds into the game. Former Jet Nick Ehlers opening the scoring last night, but Vegas stayed composed and got some timely saves down the stretch, things that did not surprise Coach John Tortorella.
I think they're calm. They've won before. They've been in this situation. The foundation of our team, the guts of our team, has been through this before. We're down 2-0. There wasn't panic on the bench, and those guys kind of lead the way by not panicking. They don't say much. They just play, and I think other people fall behind them. I think that's so important this time of year.
I've never heard John Tortorella sound so serene. Who knew that all it took was him being back in a Stanley Cup final? His Knights have now won 7 consecutive games in these playoffs. The Hurricanes will try to snap that streak tomorrow night. Game 2 goes in Raleigh.
All right, the NBA final gets going tonight.
Yeah, and a finals matchup that sort of flies in the face of what John Tortorella was saying about experience, because the Spurs and the Knicks are both fairly green as far as championship pedigree. Just one starter between the two teams has played in a final before. But that is where the similarities end between the two teams. These teams are built very differently. They play in very different markets. And to that end, Knicks guard Josh Hart clearly has a read on New York basketball fans. He was asked how much pride the team takes in just getting to the finals.
Obviously a tremendous honor. I don't think we're really looking at it that way right now. I think we're just locked in on focus at the task at hand, and then we can look back, when everything's all said and done, and really embrace, this process and this run, but we can't focus too much on, the outside world and the run so far.
That is a man who knows that his team has not won a title since 1973.
Yeah.
Of course, the last time New York was close in an NBA final, it was against the San Antonio Spurs back in 1999. The Knicks are hoping for a different outcome this time around. Tip-off tonight is at 7:30.
And I just want to slide in here the Gold Eyes, because they're hoping for a different outcome this morning. They had 11 o'clock at Blue Cross Park playing the Sioux Falls Canaries. They're in a series, but they did lose yesterday 11-7. And that had to be paused for rain, and they came back and finished the game. So a lot of Wet fans, I think, probably.
That is an early start, too.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know. You're going to play hooky if you're there today. Let's end on tennis, though. 2 Canadians still in contention over at the French Open.
And one of them still has plenty of tennis to play. That's because Gabby Dabrowski is competing in women's doubles, as she normally does, but also in mixed doubles, and she is through to the semis in both of those brackets. In singles, Felix Auger-Aliassime is the lone Canadian remaining. He plays this morning in the quarterfinal against Italian Flavio Caboli, an opponent that Felix has faced twice before and has lost to twice before. Felix, though, says that he isn't thinking about those previous matches.
I think neither for him or me, these matches are relevant to the next match we're going to play. I could see already that he was a great player. He was not high ranked already, but when you see the way he moves, when you see his shots, you can see that he's talented. I've always been a fan of his game. Now we've had the chance to practice together more and more as the years went by, and for me, I approached this next match as a very tough match.
Nobody is more complimentary of their opponents than Felix Auger-Aliassime. Very Canadian of him. He is scheduled to be on the court in the next little bit as he tries to get through to the semis.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Marcy.
That is Paul McGowan filling in for Scott Reguer with Morning Sports here. And I'm just looking at the Gold Eyes again, making sure I got the score right. I might have been reading the record. You know what I mean? Sorry about that, guys. I do know that we lost last night, though, and another game today at 11. That's confirmed. Let's talk about traffic. It's been pretty uneventful so far. A little bit foggy to the west. I shouldn't say a little bit. It was very foggy just outside of Brandon, west of Brandon, earlier this morning. You can call and update us if that's changed or if you see anything else on the commute we should know about. 788-3093. After the news, we're going to talk about Quebec's proposal to ban energy drinks for kids under 16. But right now, your CBC News from Winnipeg.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 17 degrees. Showers with thunderstorms beginning this afternoon. The wind is going to ease up, a high today of 22, but it's going to be humid, the humidex at 28. A woman in Carman says she has never experienced anything like it in her life. 3 tornadoes touched down in southern Manitoba yesterday afternoon. 2 were near Carman, 1 near Manitou. And Environment Canada says a 4th twister was reported southeast of Dauphin, but there wasn't enough evidence to confirm that. Stephanie Dewick, near Carman, noticed the sky turn green and the clouds gather just before 5:30 yesterday afternoon. She grabbed her phone and went outside and saw 2 funnel clouds forming. Dewick was watching it with her neighbor and says everything went quiet, and then a crack of lightning.
Got my daughter to the basement with our cats and watched the power dim a few times as it was going by. Kept checking the basement window. It pretty much went over our building. It toppled over my neighbor's compost bin and shoved it 3 units down from hers. There was a tree taken half down. Everybody's safe. Nobody got hurt, luckily. But that was the most intense thing I've ever seen in my life.
And she wasn't the only one. Jorge Angeles was driving home to Darlingford from his job in Winkler on Highway 3 when he noticed the storm whipping up. He also says he had never seen anything like it, so he snapped a photo.
Those clouds, and they were turning, and it was starting to get dark outside as well, and a little bit windy. So, yeah, to me, it looked like a starting of a tornado.
You can see his photo on our website this morning. Environment Canada says there is no serious damage from any of the tornadoes. Pride Winnipeg's decision to ban military personnel in uniform from this year's parade is disappointing to an advocate for 2S LGBTQ+ veterans. Todd Ross co-chairs Rainbow Veterans. He's also a former member of the Canadian Navy and a survivor of Canada's LGBT purge between the 1950s and 90s. That purge saw queer workers demoted and fired based on their sexual orientation. Ross argues having police and military uniforms in the parade increases their accountability to the LGBTQ community. He says Pride Winnipeg's new policy is exclusionary.
It kind of puts us back into that closet again. You know, I fought for 30 years to have pride in my service, and now I'm being told by an organization that I should not have pride in my service, that I have to be less than in order to participate.
Pride Winnipeg says it changed its policy based on community feedback. They say military uniforms are distressing to some people, especially newcomers from countries where police and military are corrupt. A pilot project with the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service will see paramedic teams available around the clock to respond to overdose calls in high-need areas. The Manitoba government is providing a little more than $800,000 to support this 3-month pilot, which is set to begin this month. Addictions Minister Bernadette Smith says community groups in Winnipeg have reported a significant increase in overdoses, especially in shelters and encampments. The government says it is also giving money to several other organizations to help improve responses to overdoses, including for training and the distribution of oxygen delivery devices. Well, the Trump administration is planning more tariffs for many of its trading partners, including Canada. The levy is 10% or more. It comes in a report released early this morning by the U.S. Trade Representative. It accuses Canada and dozens of other countries of importing goods made with forced labor. The report criticizes those countries for failing to address the issue and calls the inaction unacceptable, saying it creates an uneven playing field for American companies paying legal wages. You can hear more on this story coming up on World Report at 8. The Winnipeg Indigenous Friendship Centre has settled into a temporary new space on McGregor Street. Community members can get help filling out forms, finding resources, or drop in for workshops. The former Indian and Métis Friendship Centre was on Robinson Street. It shut down in 2018 after losing funding, and then the building was badly vandalized. Michael Redhead Champagne is a community organizer.
It was really difficult because it ended up in the loss of a gathering place for our community members. It was a place where a lot of people went to volunteer. It was a place where a lot of people went to access services. So not having that place for the last number of years has been a struggle for our community.
Officials say there is a 5-year plan to return to the former location and build a new friendship centre along with a seniors residence. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather Wells. Let's get into our regional forecast now after that stormy day. What is today going to bring, Abby?
Yeah, Marcy, most of the region seeing showers taper off with more thunderstorms and more showers still in the forecast later this afternoon. While the northern regions, we're seeing clear conditions and no active warnings today, more like sunshine towards the Churchill region. Here in Winnipeg, 17 light rain still spotted some part of the city, expected to taper off as you get into the morning, followed by some cloudy skies, and then we'll see those showers and thunderstorms return this afternoon. We'll see our highs around 22 degrees with some humid conditions to go with that. You will notice the winds coming in light in between, and then the showers will taper off later tonight. For the southern regions, modern towards Port La Prairie, we're looking at 16 degrees there, warming to 23. Brandon is at 15 with fog. You get to 21. Brandon all the way towards the Roblin area, we're seeing 14 degrees there with some cloudy conditions, highs around 20 degrees. And then Gimli, we're looking at 18 degrees right now. You get to 22 later. The Perth, Flin Flon, Norway House, we're seeing temperatures near 10 degrees with light rain there. Highs will be around 16. Thompson and Lynn Lake, we're looking at temperatures hovering near 7 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions. Gillam also cloudy there, 14 is your high today. Current temperatures 3 degrees. Tudula Lake is at 6 with some sunny conditions, warming to 18, while Churchill is at 8 degrees. You only get to 11 at this time. Sunshine present in that part of the province. So across board, Marcy, it's more like a mix of unsettled wet weather in the south and clear conditions with sunshine as you travel to the northern part of the province. But here in Winnipeg, we're expecting a warm day with afternoon thunderstorm risks. Current temperatures around 17 in the city.
Okay, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey.
Quiet commute so far. Haven't heard any major issues, but I did get a call about fog just west of Brandon. So if you're on the highways around there, might be poor some visibility this morning. Other than that, though, if you do see something out there, if you're walking your bike and you're driving, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, next on CBC, energy drinks are increasingly being used by children, specifically around sports. At the same time, companies like Red Bull and Monster Energy are marketing their caffeinated drinks through extreme sporting events.
Welcome to the wildest race on wheels, Red Bull Soapbox Race. The Monster Energy Men's Skateboard Street.
So it all looks and sounds like fun, but there is growing concern about young people and energy drinks, especially after a 15-year-old boy died in Quebec in 2024. Zachary Miron died after drinking a can of Red Bull while on ADHD medication. A major pharmacy in that province has pulled energy drinks from its shelves, and thousands have signed a petition asking the Quebec government to ban them. So what are the risks? Dr. Samir Gupta is here with our medical column this week, associate professor in the Department of Medicine at University of Toronto and regular, of course, medical contributor for CBC. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So obviously energy drinks have been around for a long time. What's changed now that is leading to the discussions about bans?
Yeah, so it's interesting if you look at the history of these substances, the earliest form of what could be considered an energy drink were these functional stimulants sold to shift workers in Asia to help them on the job. And that goes as far back as the 60s and 70s. By the 90s, everyone had heard of Red Bull, and energy drinks became synonymous with nightclub and rave culture. That eventually shifted to extreme sports, and most recently, the marketing has broadened to sports in general, as well as activities like gaming, and it especially now targets youth. So what's changed is that we are now more and more worried about that younger age group.
Why? Like, why? What do they contain that actually poses the risk?
Yeah, so the regulatory term for these is caffeinated energy drink. So the main ingredient there is caffeine. And Health Canada defines these as drinks containing added caffeine above a certain threshold, typically mixed with other things like vitamins, minerals, herbal ingredients. And because of that caffeine, they are regulated as a food supplement and they do have to carry certain warnings. The problem is that unlike conventional sports drinks like Gatorade, for example, which are designed for hydration, energy drinks primarily provide stimulation. And that stimulation may feel like it's helping your athletic performance, but it's not actually providing you with the fluids and electrolytes that you need for that exercise. Yet, because of the marketing around sports, it's not hard for parents and teens to sort of confuse those two categories.
So what is the specific concern with the caffeine consumption then?
There are several concerns there. Remember that kids are typically smaller than adults, so they have a smaller, what we call volume of distribution of that caffeine, which means a higher concentration. And that caffeine will affect a number of organ systems. It'll cause the heart to race. It'll cause palpitations sometimes. It'll raise the blood pressure. Rarely, those things can lead to an abnormal heart rhythm. Caffeine can also trigger feelings of anxiety and panic, which adolescents are already more susceptible to. Some kids will get headaches and GI upset. But I'd say the most widespread concerning effect is chronic sleep deprivation in adolescents. Remember that the growing brain needs sleep. Sleep is critical for memory consolidation, learning, emotional regulation, executive function. And this is a time when the brain's reward pathways are just forming. So there's a heightened risk of creating a reliance on that caffeine. And that's why the Canadian Pediatric Society and the American Academy of Pediatrics have both said that energy drinks really have no place in adolescent diets.
Are there kids who are particularly susceptible then to these effects?
There are, and younger kids, smaller kids would be more susceptible. Any kids with pre-existing sleep or mental health disorders, particularly anxiety. And when you talk about these serious cardiovascular side effects, these are rare, and there's probably always another risk factor at play. So as you noted with the young man, Zachary Miron, he was on a stimulant for ADHD, and it's thought that the stimulant effect from the energy drink combined with that is what led to his abnormal heart rhythm. So obviously, there is a higher risk in people on those kinds of medications and in kids who might have an underlying heart disorder, some of whom could be asymptomatic.
The beverage industry is pushing back. They say it isn't fair to single out these drinks as opposed to, for example, coffee. What do you say to that?
Well, I'd say it's a clever argument because on its face, it's true. These energy drinks are regulated by Health Canada to a limit of 180 milligrams of caffeine per serving. And that's not dissimilar to what you would get in a large coffee from a typical coffee shop. The difference is that they're being marketed to youth and they're being used with sports, which are in themselves a high adrenaline, very stimulating, dehydrating activity. So it's all about the usage pattern. You wouldn't expect to see kids downing 2 large coffees before hopping on the ice to play hockey, but they do that with energy drinks. And people say this would be hard to do, but there is a precedent for these kinds of bans. Many Eastern European countries do ban sales to kids. Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria, they all do this. England and Spain are planning bans for kids under 16. As you said, some pharmacies in Quebec have voluntarily removed the drinks. Others are voluntarily enforcing an age limit. So operationally, it's not dissimilar to tobacco or alcohol age limits.
What do you think is the key takeaway for young people then, and to those who are listening this morning, for parents, coaches, others that are involved with young people?
Yeah, so the first thing is that if you use these drinks, you're not alone. In Ontario, almost 1 in 5 high school students reported weekly energy drink use. Other studies suggest that probably more than half of high school kids have tried it at least once. If you're under 16, the advice is simple. Just avoid these drinks altogether. They are not the same as soft drinks. They're not the same as electrolyte drinks. They are essentially a stimulant. If you have a cardiac condition, you can have obviously a serious side effect. But even if not, the caffeine in these drinks will affect sleep, and that is critical to adolescent brain development. And to be fair, it's not just energy drinks. We have the same concern about other forms of caffeine like coffee. And I would say that banning sales to people under 16 isn't perfect. People will get around that. But it denormalizes adolescent use of these drinks, and that sends a strong public health message to kids, parents, teachers, their coaches, that this is not okay.
All right, Dr. Gupta, thank you.
My pleasure, Mercy.
That's our medical column, and Dr. Samir Gupta filling in for Dr. Bardwaj.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
It looks like this is maybe a one-day blip when farmers across the province need hot and dry.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take.
In general, it's harder to find a job even if you're educated.
From 12:15 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
When I was 5 or 6, my parents gave me seeds and helped me plant them. That was probably close to 70 years ago. And here I am still gardening.
It just brings everyone together. Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you weekdays on CBC.
Well, Winnipeg musician Noah Dirksen has a concert coming up Sunday on Side Stage in South Osborne. Kind of goes with his vibe. He likes to say life is about being in community. Maybe he'll play this track from his new album. It's an ode to his hometown, Walking Home.
Well, the springtime moon is rising soon, and it lights my path through these crooked streets and the people I meet along the river edge. You see, I've walked this road about 1,000 times, and it's always the same. There's some young punk kid who's trying to pick a fight, but I can understand. You gotta hold the ground that you were standing on. You gotta live it hard or you ain't living long. Yeah, I'm walking home, walking home. Yeah, I'm walking home, walking home, all alone. Well, my hometown now is singing the blues while the lilacs bloom. I see ghosts of old lovers on the sidewalk. I can hear them talk about their lovers new. But I can see it now, just how the world goes round. You ain't got nothing to choose. And then a young punk kid just keeps on ripping me off like he's got something to prove. Oh, yeah, I'm walking home, walking home. Yeah, I'm walking home, walking home. Past the bus stop, past the corner shop where I stole from when I was just a kid. Past my high school walls where I learned to lose, and I taught myself to see. Yeah, I'm walking home, walking home. Yeah, I'm walking home, walking home. Walking home, walking home. Yeah, I'm walking home, walking home.
Noah Dirksen and Walking Home featuring Fontaine, a song from Noah's new album Mercy on the Skyline. His concert in Winnipeg to launch his new album is coming up on Sunday at Side Stage in South Osborne if you want to check it out. Well, still ahead on Information Radio on CBC this morning, how do you explain a tornado forming in your backyard to your kids?
Right there. Oh no. See, it's okay, honey. Hey, if there's a tornado, we go to the basement and everything is fine. See, it's sucking all those little clouds into it?
Coming up, we're going to talk to that southern Manitoba resident who witnessed some intense weather yesterday. As you heard, 3 tornadoes are confirmed to have touched down, with a 4th reported. Heather Wells will have more in her headlines at the top of the clock. Right now, it is 17 degrees. It's brightened in downtown Winnipeg. Still some cloud, but the rain has stopped and the sky's not as dark. We are expecting, though, this afternoon, thunderstorms to begin again. So I'm seeing people walk down Portage Avenue right now, one crossing the street, umbrella in hand, and that's exactly what you're going to need to be prepared for the day across actually most of southern Manitoba. Well, next on the show, public health officials are hoping to connect with communities to help them understand the current in situation with the measles outbreak in this province. The province tonight is hosting a town hall meeting at 6 o'clock. They will take questions from Southern Health residents. Manitoba has the worst measles outbreak in Canada right now. The province had more confirmed and probable cases of measles in the first 2.5 months of 2026 than the entire year of 2025. So residents in some of the hardest hit areas will receive calls, or are already receiving calls rather, from the province about how to participate in the information session by phone. Those who wish to join the discussion can register online as well. Dr. Jazz Atwal is the Deputy Chief Provincial Public Health Officer. He will answer questions at the town hall tonight, but he's here a little bit to set it up this morning. He's live via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning.
So tell us more about the concern that prompted the information session. How many cases do we have of measles in the province right now?
So at the present time, there's been 589 confirmed cases of measles in Manitoba in 2026. There's 6 probable cases as well. On top of that, we've seen a number of hospitalizations, 49 hospitalizations, including 4 in ICU. The vast majority of people heading into hospital haven't been immunized either, or their immunization status is unknown. So we heard from community, been working with communities, families, individuals as well in relation to, understanding hesitancy, let's say, related to vaccine uptake. We've talked to health professionals on the ground as well, and we're answering more and more questions from community members. And it was thought that maybe a town hall would be a good venue to have to host, to get people, to get families, to get community members together to talk about measles, what it means to them, what our concerns are, and what can be done to help mitigate those issues for that individual, for that family, and for that community as well.
As you mentioned, right now you're targeting, the southern part of the province. Which areas are most affected?
So Southern Health, the Morden Winkler area is most affected by this, although we have seen cases throughout the province as well. We are targeting that area, but it's not to say that if you aren't from that area, you can't join the town hall. So you can go to engagemb.ca and register to participate if you choose to. What's the challenge for the province in getting this under control, especially considering that in the past we wouldn't have been having this conversation? So what's the challenge? I think we're talking about a time where there's a little bit of misinformation out there, disinformation. I think there's a bit of community trust that may have eroded with public health, and I think the pandemic played a role in that as well. So we're here to help build that trust back up again, to answer those questions and to really, understand what communities want and see if we could assist them in making good decisions.
What would you like people to know about the dangers of the disease?
So measles in general, it's very contagious. So if you aren't immunized, there's a number of risks that can happen. We know that a number of people will get hospitalized. There's long-term sequelae that occur as well. So in some people, it will cause pneumonia. It could cause upper airway obstruction. Most people tend to get better on their own, but there is that risk of having chronic brain damage, which can lead into blindness, deafness, pneumonias that can lead into lung problems, and very rare cases of, something that happens 7 to 10 years down the road is something called subsclerosing panencephalitis, where you get a damage to the brain, but it doesn't show up right away. It takes many, many years for that to develop.
What's the biggest piece of disinformation or misinformation that you would like to talk about this morning, or debunk using facts that you hear out there that is concerning and may create some of the hesitancy, may factor into some of the hesitancy that you've talked about?
I think we're hearing, people worried about vaccine, links to autism, and I think those myths have been debunked. We've reviewed the literature many times. We've done reviews on it, not only locally but nationally, and there was one study that showed a possible link, but was determined that was a falsified study. So we want to be able to articulate those items as well and talk to the population about it. I think there's some hesitancy there that might be stemming for other reasons. We know that in some of the families where we see measles cases, the adults and the older children are vaccinated, but not the younger children. And we've seen a decline in vaccination even prior to the pandemic as well in youth. So again, we want to just explore what the concerns are, see if we could address any of those concerns, and if there are myths out there that need addressing, we'll address those myths at the town hall tonight as well.
For those answering questions at the town hall, I'm curious whether you have anyone local from the areas most affected that will be answering it. Because when we've talked about, the best passive education in the past, when we learned from other, on the show, when we learned from other regions, what we've heard on CBC is that often some of the trust that's broken down at the provincial level is, people look at the individual. They may even look at you, Dr. Atwell, and say, well, I don't know you, I don't know. But they may trust really in their local, maybe it's their local doctor or another local leadership. So will there be involvement from any local leaders to answer some questions tonight?
So there should be some local individuals from Southern Health there as well. But we've also talked to all the doctors, all the nurses, public health nurses within the region as well to have those one-on-one conversations with clients when they see them. And they have been doing that. So we have that buy-in from healthcare professionals, from trusted professionals on the medical side all throughout Southern. And they have been having those discussions with patients when they do see them. So we'll continue to build on that, and we'll answer again those questions that people have tonight.
In terms of public outreach beyond this, I know that when we were in Brandon at the fair, there were shots being offered right on site as well as information. Is that something that's going to continue campaign-wise through the summertime as we get into festival season and such?
So those are things that we'll review on the public health side. If there is a need to do something or a desire locally to do that, we will participate. So again, on a case-by-case basis, when opportunity presents itself, we think if we think it's a good opportunity, we'll take advantage of it for sure.
What do people need to know if they still want to take part then in the town hall tonight? They can still log on or register today, I'm presuming. What should they know?
Yes, so you can go to engagemb.ca and look at registering through there.
Whoops. Okay, just wanted to make sure we repeat that information. Thank you very much, Dr. Atwell. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me. See you tonight.
Okay, that's Dr. Jas Atwell, Deputy Chief Provincial Public Health Officer. The province says residents in the Southern Health region will receive information about how to participate, but engage.mb.ca, as Dr. Atwell just said, is where you should go and check out for more information tonight. And you don't have to be from that region to participate, though they are hoping to focus on there because of the measles cases and the geography of where those cases are happening. It is now coming up to 8 o'clock, 3 minutes to, and still ahead in the show after 8. We are going to be hearing just what I suspect is an incredible story, because the video is quite incredible, from a woman who lives in the area around Carmen. So stay tuned. We're going to hear what happened when a tornado was forming outside her window in the distance, but nearing her yard. She shared video of this with us. She'll talk to us about what yesterday was like as these tornadoes and storm systems move through. Also, let's talk wildfires. Lactobani firefighters are currently staving off wildfires in the Agassiz Provincial Forest. We're going to talk to the Reeve of the Arm of Lactobani live after 8. We'll find out what the situation looks like this morning, whether or not any rain moved through there yesterday that would have helped the situation, and also how prepared they feel moving forward as we just passed a year of what happened last year, and we know how quickly things spread. So that's all coming up live after 8 right here on Information Radio on CBC. In 89.3 FM weather this morning, we can tell you that it's brighter downtown, still cloudy, but not those dark, heavy clouds. They could return, though, because right now it's 17, but later this morning, this afternoon, we are expecting showers and thunderstorms to begin once again. Our high is 22 degrees in Winnipeg today, though with Humidex, it'll feel like 28. Heather Wells is here now with headlines to 8 o'clock.
Well, we are also going to hear from a woman in Carmen who says she has never experienced anything like it in her life. Stephanie Dueck noticed the sky turn green and the clouds gathered just before 5:30 yesterday afternoon. Environment Canada confirms 2 tornadoes touched down near Carmen and 1 near Manitou. Reports of a 4th tornado near Dauphin have not been confirmed because there wasn't enough evidence. A pilot project with the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service is going to see paramedic teams available around the clock responding to overdose calls in high-need areas. Now, Winnipeg's mayor says Winnipeg needs emergency coverage across the whole city. And Scott Gillingham says the city also needs a permanent increase of ambulances and full-time paramedic positions. We'll hear more in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather. Tim and Catherine both called the commuter line. Apparently, lights at Pembina and Dalhousie are flashing red, so treat that as a 4-way stop. World Report is next.
on cue.
Joe Keithley has spent his whole life fighting the big fight. First as the leader of the legendary punk band DOA, and then as a city councillor in Burnaby, British Columbia, where he grew up. Joe Keithley will be here to tell you about a life of standing by your conviction.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Mark Kelly. Albertans will vote in October on a question of separatism. It's a polarizing topic, but the new group Lead Not Leave is working to build a middle ground to make Alberta and Canada better together. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. The trillion-dollar trading relationship between Canada and the United States is hitting another rough patch. Just as Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc wrapped up a trip to Washington, the Trump administration stunned Ottawa by proposing a 10% tariff on Canadian goods. The U.S. claims the new levy is for not effectively banning the import of products made with forced labor. Janice McGregor's been following all of this from our parliamentary bureau. Janice, is this a surprise?
John, the Trump administration needed to find a new guise, a new legal means for imposing a blanket global tariff on all its trading partners. The need's been urgent since the Supreme Court struck down its previous tariffs earlier this year. This forced labor probe was so broad, so vague, that blanket determination could be a foregone conclusion. Now, if he knew this was coming, Canada's lead minister, Dominic LeBlanc, didn't let on for reporters yesterday, but he did sound resigned to this new reality.
It's not a surprise that the United States initiated these investigations. It won't surprise you that we share the concern of the Americans and other economic partners that we need to do everything we can together to face this challenge.
CUSMA-compliant goods are exempt. There's nearly 75 pages of exemptions, in fact, providing relief to American consumers for already inflated food products like beef, coffee, things like pharmaceuticals also. And these latest tariffs don't stack on top of tariffs, already adding a lot of inflation for things like steel and aluminum.
So, Janice, how could this impact CUSMA negotiations?
The uncomfortable truth is Canadian authorities have been found falling short of keeping goods made with forced labor out. Past CBC News investigations have found cotton clothing, tomato products with questionable supply chains on store shelves at major Canadian retailers. Aluminum supply chains in China are also tainted with forced labor concerns, but Canada agreed to import more Chinese electric vehicles anyway. Canada has passed laws against forced labor, but the U.S. listed this lack of enforcement among its list of trade irritants earlier this year. CUSMA goods may be exempt for now, but this global action could be new leverage during the review negotiations to force Canada and Mexico to block more Chinese goods or face consequences.
Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Violent clashes on the streets of Southampton, England overnight, sparked by a controversial courtroom video. Protesters threw bricks and bottles at police. The force is facing a backlash following the murder of Henry Novak. Newly released body cam footage shows the white 18-year-old handcuffed by police as he lay dying from stab wounds, and he complained he couldn't breathe. His attacker, a sick man who falsely accused Novak of racism, he was sentenced to life in prison on Monday. At least 21 people are dead after a fire in India's capital of New Delhi, most foreign nationals. Officials say the building was a guest house for patients and relatives visiting a nearby hospital. About 40 people were injured. It's still not known what sparked the fire. Kenya's president is defending his government's approval of a U.S.-backed Ebola facility. The building is north of Nairobi, and it would be used to quarantine Americans potentially exposed to the virus. As Katie Nicholson explains, the plan has sparked backlash.
Hundreds of Kenyans crushed together in fury on the streets of Nanyuki, all in protest of a U.S. plan to open a 50-bed quarantine facility for Americans exposed to the deadly Ebola virus at an airbase. The patients would be flown in from other countries. So far, the Kenyan courts have blocked its construction and the arrival of foreign patients.
The agreement between the government of Kenya and the American government is for the good of our country.
As Kenyan President William Ruto defends it.
The facility is not a facility different from all the other facilities that we have across Kenya.
Ruto said he agreed to the facility because of long-standing bilateral agreements with the U.S. During a cabinet meeting in May, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had said the Trump administration wouldn't allow any Ebola cases to enter the U.S. That prompted American healthcare professionals to write an open letter to Congress expressing profound clinical, ethical, operational, and legal concerns. Asked Tuesday about Kenyan opposition to the quarantine facility, the director of the Center for Medicare and Medicaid, Dr. Mehmet Oz, was confident.
No, I think we're going to work out with Secretary Rubio's leadership a very favorable arrangement with Kenya.
A point many Kenyans clearly disagree with. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
Veteran CBS News correspondent Scott Pelley is out as host of 60 Minutes. What appears to have been an internal squabble has now become very public, with Pelley calling out the network's new owners and executives for trying to stay in the good graces of President Trump. Apparently, everything came to a head after a tense staff meeting. The CBC's Chris Reyes is in Washington. Chris, what can you tell us about what led to Pelley's dismissal?
Well, John, that staff meeting with the program's new executive producer, Nick Bilton, earlier this week turned confrontational. And in that meeting, Pelley reportedly accused Bilton and his boss, controversial and also new CBS News president Barry Weiss, of murdering 60 Minutes after two other 60 Minutes correspondents were fired last week. In a scathing letter obtained by several news outlets, Bilton said Pelley hijacked his first meeting and showed no interest in the future of the show. Bilton called Pelley's behavior a performative display of hostility enacted in front of the staff. Bilton said he hoped to sit down with Pelley to find a path forward, but he accused Pelley of making it clear that he was not interested in that.
Chris, what have we heard from Scott Pelley?
Yeah, Pelley released a full-page statement to several news outlets. He addressed the issue directly. He wrote, "The new owner of our network is casting 60 Minutes aside, apparently to curry a moment of favor with the Trump administration." This controversy, John, goes back to last year when CBS's parent company merged with Skydance, owned by the son of Trump ally Larry Ellison. Pelley goes on to say that new management instructed him to inject falsehoods and bias into a politically sensitive story, and that he has been told to include assertions that are unverified. Referring to the firing of his two colleagues, Pelley said good people were silenced because they stood up for our audience. He said they stood up for fairness against forces of political bias. They stood up for professionalism against chaos. He said the waste was heartbreaking.
CBC's Chris Reyes in Washington. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
In Manitoba, hot and dry weather is fueling the wildfire risk across much of the province. 2 wildfires are burning out of control about an hour's drive northeast of Winnipeg. 4 water bombers, including a pair from Ontario, are working to put out the flames. Local officials and residents are anxious about the potential repeat of 2025. Flames tore through more than 40 square kilometers of the region that year, and 2 people were killed. There are big worries in Newfoundland and Labrador over a potential summer strike at Marine Atlantic. The Crown Corporation is the only ferry service between the province and the Maritimes, and even a partial shutdown could have major economic fallout. Peter Cowan has the details.
I think it's really concerning.
Anne-Marie Boudreau is head of the St. John's Board of Trade. She says if workers at Marine Atlantic are able to strike, it would cause a huge disruption.
A lot of perishable food that comes to the island portion of Newfoundland and Labrador comes via Marine Atlantic. We get a lot of medical supplies that services the entire island that come via Marine Atlantic. So we're talking about a critical link.
Workers represented by Unifor started bargaining last year. In April, talks broke down despite the help of a federal mediator. Workers could be in a legal strike position by the end of the month. The Labour Relations Board ruled Marine Atlantic is an essential service, so workers can't walk off the job. But the union is now proposing that if a strike does happen, service could be cut to just 3 crossings a week, down from 4 crossings a day.
Marine Atlantic is an essential service for us.
Premier Tony Wakeham says he doesn't want to see any cuts during a busy summer season, with tourists coming in and more than $1 billion worth of seafood going out.
Yeah, any kind of a slowdown in Marine Atlantic is a problem for us.
Federal Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne was in Newfoundland, where he was asked about the ferry service.
This is going to require all our attention.
The union wouldn't comment, but in an update posted online, it says talks broke down before monetary issues could even be discussed. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Did you know that World Report is among the most popular podcasts in Canada? Well, don't miss out. Follow us wherever you listen. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Well, the rain has now stopped in downtown Winnipeg, but a lot of people in this province are going to be comparing storm stories from yesterday. There were a lot of them. This half hour, we're going to take you to southern Manitoba, and a Manitoba resident who lives around Carmen. She was witnessing some intense weather yesterday. She shared the video with CBC as she watched a funnel cloud forming near her home. So stay tuned. We'll talk to her, and we'll hear more from Heather Wells in headlines as well. 3 tornadoes were confirmed. In addition, this half hour on the show, speaking of weather, we're also going to be talking about the fire risk in this province. The Reeve of the Arm of Lac du Bonnet is going to be joining us. Firefighters, as you've been hearing on World Report, have been staving off and watching wildfires already in the Agassiz Provincial Forest. So we'll find out more about what that looks like this morning. Right now, though, as mentioned, let's go to Heather Wells for other headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, and a woman in Carmen says she just had time to grab her daughter and run to the basement as funnel clouds formed near her home. She says it happened so quickly. The sky was sunny, and then all of a sudden it turned green, and the thunder started. We're going to hear what she saw coming up as, yes, Environment Canada confirming 3 tornadoes yesterday. A 4th tornado near Dauphin was reported, but not enough evidence to confirm there. Mayor Scott Gillingham says Winnipeg needs permanent emergency coverage across the whole city. The province has announced funding for a pilot project with Winnipeg Fire and Paramedic Service to have paramedic teams available around the clock responding to overdose calls in high-need areas. More on that coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
With a brief look at today's weather, here's Abby.
Yeah, it's a mixed start. We're seeing transition from localized stormy weather in the south to clear conditions as we go further north. Winnipeg, we are still around 18, 17 degrees. We warm to 22 and similar conditions for most regions in the south.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
It's Abby Adiemi. And now Corey Funk with our commute.
Lights flashing right now north at Pembina and Dalhousie. Some backups I heard from both Tim and Catherine are building around there. Also, Julie says northbound Pembina at the Jubilee underpass, there's a stalled car in the right-hand lane. And Jason says there's actually 2 stalled cars on Kenniston. One southbound Kenniston just after Academy. Look out for that in the left-hand lane. And also northbound Kenniston just before you get to Silver in the median lanes. Look out for that. If you see anything else, though, if you're walking, bike, and driving, give me a call. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, as Heather just confirmed, there were at least 3 tornadoes touching down in Manitoba yesterday, 1 near Manitou, 2 others south of Carmen. Morgan Pinkerton lives in the area that saw one forming near her home, the funnel cloud forming. And we're about to hear a video that she shared with us. And if you're watching our show stream, you'll see it. Here she is trying her best to make this a learning moment for the kids.
Right there. Oh no. See, it's okay, honey. Hey. If there's a tornado, we go to the basement and everything is fine. See, it's sucking all those little clouds into it? It's okay. See, it's twisting. It's forming. It's okay, just don't go outside. You guys are going to get soaked if you do. Oh, here it goes. It's okay. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. See it twisting? See it twisting? There it is. It's okay, you guys. It's okay. Whee! There's the wind. Woo! Wowzers! That's kind of cool, eh, you guys? See, it's pulling all these little clouds into that thing right there.
Morgan joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
That was some good mama bearing right there, trying to, keep the kids calm. What were you feeling, though, watching this incredible cloud form? And were you watching out the window? Were you on the porch, or where were you?
I was outside the house on the deck. Not my finest moment. I was just feeling like it was exhilarating just to watch Mother Nature come together with so much power. And I mean, we've seen tornadoes around here before, but to see one form right in front of my eyes and actually be able to catch it forming on video was just a spectacular moment for us.
Watching that cloud. So where are you located specifically? Because as we mentioned, your area really had tons of the active weather. And what time was this?
This was about 4:30. We're just around Manitou here, so
got it.
About 4:30, we had seen some pretty good thunderstorms before that. We knew that they were calling for pretty severe weather, so we were kind of watching out the window for that to come as well. So,
what did it feel like? Like, did the temperature change? Did the color of the sky change? What was it like leading up to? Take me through a little bit of those moments.
It was pretty hot beforehand. It was pretty humid, hot. The moments before, it got incredibly dark. The sky, there were definitely patches of green in the sky. And then when I looked up and saw clear blue sky above us and darkness all around us, it was very calm. Like the sun was shining through and there was no wind, no rain, no thunder, lightning, nothing like that. But I would assume that was probably us in the eye of the storm. But when we started moving through the tornado forming there, it was very cold, windy, still no rain, no thunder, no lightning, but it was definitely, it dropped in temperature very, very quickly.
For people that haven't seen the video, I mean, there's an enormous cloud, and then the finger is starting to come down. It's fairly thick, though. It's not like a thin little point. How far away do you figure this was? It looks like it's just across your yard.
I mean, I'm not the best judge, but I would say probably maybe 5 miles.
Yeah. Did it ever touch down? Do you know, like, what progressed after the video? What happened after the camera got turned off?
After that, I'm not entirely sure. There was a tornado confirmed east of Manitou. I'm not exactly sure where that was.
Yeah.
But it did say it was southeast of Miami as well. So I assume that's probably the same one.
But it didn't move
other
closer
than that,
to your
I
property,
didn't do any
right?
further investigating. We came to the basement after that.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going to interject. It didn't come closer to your property, though, after that or any of that.
No.
Got it.
No, it was moving eastwards away from the property.
So I have to ask, what was going through your mind when you're watching this with the kids? We can hear you, trying to like teach them and make sure they're not too scared. But then we do hear the kids saying, when you're saying, look, it's moving, and they're going, no. What was going through your mind?
Yeah, they were, I just wanted to kind of give them like partially a learning lesson, but also like telling them at the same time that like Mother Nature can be, can be really powerful. It can be unpredictable. We watch from afar. We don't move towards it. We were steps away from the basement. So
yeah,
I wanted them to kind of not be afraid, but also to be afraid, if that makes any sense. Like to see Mother Nature in its power, in its glory.
Were you afraid?
Weather can be so unpredictable. I wasn't. I knew that if it was necessary that, we would just duck into the basement and it would be okay. It did have adrenaline rushing through my body. I was shaking. I just thought it was absolutely phenomenal to watch something so powerful come together right in front of my eyes.
Yeah.
There was really no doubt for me that we would be okay. Like, I had tornado warnings coming in from here, there, and everywhere. I had people phoning me saying, like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Is everyone all right? I said, yeah, like, we're fine. We're doing our best. We're staying calm. We're keeping our eyes on the storm.
Yeah. Have you ever seen anything like this
just
before in your area?
Yeah, actually, there have been a couple tornadoes in the past that we have been able to see and that have actually touched down like pretty locally. That were pretty, this was probably maybe 5-10 years ago now. We got to see them and they were smaller, but we didn't actually get to see it form. It just kind of came into the area, touched down, moved through the area, and then dissipated, sort of thing.
So this is like a longer event. How old are the kids?
Yes.
I'm guessing they have quite a story to tell today.
I believe they will, yes. My oldest is 6. My second will be 4 at the end of the month. And then I have a 10-month-old as well. He was sitting on my hip enjoying the show too. So,
why did you say it wasn't your finest moment?
I mean, I probably should have thought more about the kids' safety and taken them to the basement when I had tornado warnings coming in on my phone. They were probably like, I could have been more focused on them and what they were feeling rather than like, I'm watching a tornado. It's like, we got to watch this through.
Okay, fair enough.
I probably could have been more mama and brought them to the basement sooner.
Well, fair enough. But I also understand you saying, how close you were to the basement, that you saw the warnings and knew, what your safety plan would be. And as far as the learning moment, yeah, your kids are unlikely to forget those images. Incredible video. Thanks for sharing with us. Glad everyone's safe, Morgan. Thank you for being with us today.
For sure. Thank you.
Just incredible images all over Manitoba yesterday. Morgan Pinkerton and her family living in the Winkler-Morden area around Manitou. So they did see this funnel cloud forming last night. And yes, a reminder in severe weather like we had across the province, best practice is to take shelter in the lowest part of a building, like a basement or a central room. And if you get caught outside, you're going to lie flat and cover your head. If you want to share any video or photos with us, radio 893 at cbc.ca. Hey, 8:21 is the time right now, 17 and cloudy in Winnipeg. Well, from wild weather with the storm yesterday and the tornadoes touching down to talking about the wildfire threat. We had that hot, dry weekend, and then we had wildfires once again burning throughout Manitoba. 2 specifically are still listed as out of control last we checked, both near Lac du Bonnet and Agassiz Provincial Forest. Now, this is obviously a grim reminder of last year's deadly wildfires in the area. One weighs heavily on firefighters and emergency officials, that memory does rather. They're working around the clock to battle this year's blaze already. Lauren Shinkle's here with an update, though, to see what things look like, especially since we had the rain move through. He's Reeve of Arm of Lac du Bonnet. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us. Has rain helped the situation? What's the status of those fires I mentioned?
Well, it's definitely slowed them down. The last report that I got late last night was that both of the fires were still out of control listed, but hadn't really grown in size because of the efforts, certainly, of the wildfire services and conservation. They still had the 4 water bombers here yesterday all day on both fires. The Red Deer Hills fire is about 90 hectares, and the Milner Ridge fire, they listed them as around 300 hectares. I know our fire department was out putting up some sprinklers again last night, value protection stuff. And the province did bring out a bigger helicopter that carried about 4,000 liters of water. So that certainly assisted in that fight as well. So hopefully the rain has dampened that a bit. We didn't get a complete downpour, but it did rain significantly. So any moisture that Mother Nature can provide certainly helps.
In the area, do we have any communities that could be threatened by this, or is the smoke a factor?
Yesterday there was very little smoke because of the cloud cover. We had more certainly on Sunday throughout the day, but not really communities that can be threatened with the path of the fire right now. There's about 4 different properties that have been value protected with sprinklers by our personnel, and all of those people haven't been evacuated. It's just that there are structures in place. And certainly they've been consulted as well during the course of this process.
You mentioned the provincial helicopter, I think helicopter with the water coming.
They've had a number of, along with the water bombers, there was 2 from the province and 2 from Ontario that were here. They've also been utilizing the buckets with the helicopters, and they did bring in a larger helicopter yesterday to assist in that battle as well.
I wanted to ask you about it, Reeve, because I'm wondering whether or not that compares, how that compares to last year. Is that a swifter response at this stage of, wildfires? Or is it the same as what would have happened last year? Because there were a lot of lessons learned last year.
Yeah, there were, certainly. And I have to say that even last year, within 10 minutes of contacting, wildfire services, we had 2 water bombers diverted to the fire that we had last year. This year, it was the same type of a quick response. Everybody understands certainly that despite the heavy rainfall or the rains that we got this spring, it's still very dry out. That Sunday, we actually had another different fire too up in a recreational park northeast of us. That was also dealt with by our crews as well as the residents there. Thank them for their quick action.
Are you talking? Sorry, just to interject. You're talking about this past Sunday?
Yes, past Sunday. We actually had.
Where was that?
That was in the recreation area, Granite Hills,
okay,
northwest of us. And it's ironic because we had last year during a fire, we had Global Medic that donated a number of the slip tanks with fire apparatus, a pump and such on it. And the Cottage Association actually utilized that equipment to put out this Granite Hills fire rather quickly with the assistance of the residents. So it shows that we all have to be hyper vigilant when it comes to wildfire and Mother Nature's, any hot, dry spells, certainly. We have to be all fire smart.
What's the mood like, given what your community and your area went through last year? And of course, 2 people lost their lives as those fires moved through so swiftly last year. How are people feeling when, obviously, that they're hearing again and pulling out the equipment again to battle some flames already?
Well, I think there's everybody is apprehensive. We all understand where we live. Mother Nature, we live in that touted 4 seasons playground. But along with the wooded areas that we have and the heavy forestation, certainly we've got to be cautious all the time. We push our Fire Smart program through the Emergency Measures Program for every cottage association we're associated to, 11 of them in the region. And at the end of the day, certainly all our residents know that we all have to look after one another, be good neighbors, and pay attention to what's happening when it comes to that fire issue.
Last year, I know that there were some issues with communication. Have there been any changes made to help the community, protect the community overall from wildfires in the arm of Lac du Bonny? I know that there was a concern around people having to go to Facebook, or there was a system of notification that local leaders like yourself all across Manitoba and rural areas, you have to use this app that people have to sort of be notified. There were questions about whether or not for fire threat we could tap into like the provincial emergency system, which might be more reliable, perhaps, like when missing persons, alerts go out and such. I'm wondering whether or not there's been any movement on that front to sort of help notify people about fire.
Well, certainly through the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, I've had meetings with the blending of the emergency systems, both at the federal and provincial level. Out here, we utilize a system, it's called Connect. Used to be the old Code Red, and we've unpacked that whole system as a result of our fire last year. Certainly with the carrier and the person and the company that promotes that, we have close to 6,000 people right now that are registered in our area. I know our emergency management personnel have reviewed all of the information from last year's terrible tragedy. We've also implemented certainly texting teams in certain areas where the cell connectivity is an issue. So regardless if we have access to the provincial system, if we don't have cell phone connectivity, that's the issue. And that's a broader issue that certainly has to be dealt with at the federal level through CRTC.
You're going to need lines put in some of the areas? Is it actually an ask?
No, this becomes a tower situation where the towers are located so that you have that connectivity. everybody in Manitoba knows, regardless of where you go in every community, there's dead spots, and that's because of the cell towers and where they're located, and that's governed by the CRTC through the federal government, and I've been part of those discussions as well.
Would they fund in the meantime Starlink maybe for each and every resident somehow because of the risk through emergency? Because I know that around St. Laurent, for example, different community, different part of Manitoba, but I mean they have connectivity issues, and a lot of them now have their own systems.
Well, Starlink is certainly an option. We've talked about that as well. I know that certainly in remote communities and remote even vehicles utilize the Starlink app or the Starlink technology, and that is something that we're talking about as well here. But again, it's the connectivity issue, which it shouldn't be downloaded to the individuals. You know, we live in a great country and in a great province here, and I think that the federal government has to take note and do more on that connectivity issue right across the country, not only in our province.
All right, Lauren Schinkel, thank you very much for the update on what's happening in your area. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. You have a great day, okay?
Yeah, you too. That's Lauren Schinkel, the Reeve of the Arm of Lac de Bonnie. I don't mind being called sir, actually. It is coming up to 8:30, and in traffic, there's a couple of things developing. Corey will have the very latest after our CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's 18 degrees. We're expecting thunderstorms to begin again this afternoon with a risk of a thunderstorm continuing through the evening. Today's high in Winnipeg, 22, but the humidity will make it feel a little hotter. A woman in Carman says she had to grab her daughter and run to the basement as funnel clouds formed near her home. Stephanie Dueck says the weather alert went off on her phone, but at that time it was still sunny. She went outside and saw the sky change.
And then I saw green clouds and the rain and the wind was weird. And then all of a sudden it went almost silent. And I went out back just to gather a couple things, so just in case I didn't want no debris flying kind of deal. And I peeked over the fence and I saw a funnel cloud.
Dueck says there was a bolt of lightning and thunder almost immediately. She took her 12-year-old daughter and cat to the basement. Dueck says fortunately there wasn't a lot of damage. Her compost bin toppled over, but her neighbor's bin was carried down the block. Environment Canada confirms 2 tornadoes did touch down in the Carman area. One touched down near Manitou. Another twister was reported southeast of Dauphin, but the evidence there was insufficient to confirm. No damage reported from any of these tornadoes. Mayor Scott Gillingham says Winnipeg needs permanent emergency coverage across the whole city. The province has announced more than $800,000 for a pilot project with the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service to have paramedic teams available around the clock responding to overdose calls in high-need areas. Addictions Minister Bernadette Smith says community groups in Winnipeg have reported significant increase in overdoses, especially in shelters and encampments. In a statement, the mayor says Winnipeg needs a permanent increase to the baseline complement of ambulances and full-time paramedic positions. Pride Winnipeg's decision to ban military personnel in uniform from this year's parade is disappointing to an advocate for 2S LGBTQ+ veterans. Todd Ross co-chairs Rainbow Veterans. He argues having police and military uniforms in the parade increases their accountability to the LGBTQ community. He says Pride Winnipeg's new policy is exclusionary.
It kind of puts us back into that closet again. You know, I fought for 30 years to have pride in my service, and now I'm being told by an organization that I should not have pride in my service, that I have to be less than in order to participate.
Pride Winnipeg says it changed its policy based on community feedback. They say military uniforms are distressing to some people, especially newcomers from countries where police and military are corrupt. The Trump administration is planning more tariffs for many of its trading partners, including Canada. The levy is 10% or more, and it comes in a report released early this morning by the U.S. Trade Representative. It accuses Canada and dozens of other countries of importing goods made with forced labor. The report criticizing those countries for failing to address the issue and calling the inaction unacceptable, saying it creates an uneven playing field with American companies who pay legal wages. A 17-year-old Winnipeg boy has died in a crash west of Kenora. Ontario Provincial Police were called to Highway 17 just before 2 yesterday afternoon. The vehicle the teen was driving and a semi-truck collided. The driver of the semi was not hurt. That crash closed the highway in the area for several hours. The Winnipeg Indigenous Friendship Centre has settled into a temporary new space on McGregor. Community members can get help filling out forms, finding resources, or dropping in for workshops. The former Indian and Métis Friendship Centre was on Robinson. It was shut down in 2018 after losing funding. Then the building was badly vandalized. Michael Redhead Champagne is a community organizer.
It was really difficult because it ended up in the loss of a gathering place for our community members. It was a place where a lot of people went to volunteer. It was a place where a lot of people went to access services. So not having that place for the last number of years has been a struggle for our community.
Officials say there is a 5-year plan to return to the former location and build a new friendship center along with the seniors' residence. You can find more news updated throughout the day, as well as photos and video of yesterday's tornadoes. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Thanks to Heather Wells and Joni Nicolo. And you can catch us in our news center this morning. Abby Adeyemi, Darren Marash, and Corey Funk here in our Studio 15 team. And Donna Carrero, producer, who's been helping in unit produce the program. And Nellie Gonzalez, who's been stepping in, filling in as senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. Corey Funk's here with a last look at our commute.
Northbound Pembina and Bairdmore, and southbound as well. Those lights flashing red, so look out for that. Some backups building there. Southbound Kenaston, just after Academy, there's a car in the left lane as well. Northbound Route 90, just before Silver Stall in the median lane.
All right. Also, thanks to Emily Enns, by the way. Just want to add in Emily, who worked on some of the items on today's show, an associate producer in our unit. Okay, Corey is done with traffic, so let's have a last look at this day.
It's
Abby.
a damn start across the province. We're going to see a transition from this localized stormy weather down south to more stable, clear conditions as you move north. However, the showers will be returning later in the afternoon. In the southern regions, we'll see highs close to 22 degrees. Look out for thunderstorms this afternoon in Winnipeg and expect those showers to taper off overnight as we transition to more cooler and stable pattern for tomorrow. It's 18 degrees right now in the city.
All right, thanks, Abby. Well, on the call-in today, starting at 12:15 on Radio Noon, join host Marjorie Dalhouse as they ask, what makes a good neighbor? I bet you've got a good story from over the years. People always remember good neighbors. Or maybe you've acted in a way that's made you a good neighbor. Join the call-in at 12:15 right here on CBC Radio 1. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This has been CBC's Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app. And for all of you watching on YouTube, thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow.